Hey guys, tonight we're stepping straight into a storm. The kind of night where the wind doesn't just blow, it screams. The stars vanish behind swirling white, and every breath feels like it's slicing through your lungs. You probably won't survive this, unless you know what the native peoples of the north once knew. That snow, yes snow, the very thing that freezes your fingers numb, can also keep you alive. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop your location and local time in the comments. I love seeing where everyone's listening from. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You trudge through the endless whiteness, the world around you erased, except for the crunch beneath your boots. Every step sinks into the frozen crust, and your mind flickers between panic and wonder. Somewhere ahead, a faint orange glow, flickering like the pulse of a heartbeat. That's the promise of warmth. You duck behind a snowdrift, and there it is. A dome of packed snow, low and round like a sleeping beast. It looks fragile, as if one strong wind could scatter it. But as you crawl closer, your glove brushes its wall, and you feel something solid, sculpted, and shockingly warm against your palm. Inside, the air is thick with the scent of burning fat and pine smoke. A small flame dances at the center, its light rippling across curved walls that glitter like glass. You kneel, still shivering, and realize that the very snow, something you've spent your whole life avoiding, is holding the heat in. The people who built this, the ancestors of the Inuit and other northern tribes, had learned through centuries of survival that snow doesn't just freeze, it insulates. Beneath its surface, trapped air keeps warmth from escaping, turning a deadly landscape into a refuge. Modern scientists measured this later, of course, and confirmed that inside temperatures could hover just around freezing while outside it dropped far below. But long before thermometers or thermal models, they already knew it by feel, by faith, by the sound their breath made when it struck the dome and came back warm. You can almost hear that first realization. Some ancient hunter ducking into a hollow drift to escape the storm and waking, hours later alive. Maybe he laughed, maybe he cried, or maybe he just whispered thanks to the wind. From that moment, snow became more than frozen water. It became architecture. Your fingers trace the inner surface, feeling the spiral grooves where someone's hands once packed and smoothed it. Each block is set in a circular pattern, leaning inward, self-supporting like the bones of a rib cage. No nails, no wood, just trust in pressure and patience. And above your head, a small hole, barely wider than your wrist, breathes the shelter's life, letting smoke slip out while keeping warmth sealed tight. Historians still argue whether this design came by slow evolution or a sudden stroke of genius, but every tribe had their version. A faint laugh drifts from the corner, soft, rhythmic. Someone's sleeping, wrapped in furs, and the snow hums around them like a giant muffled drum. The strangest thing hits you. It's not cold. In fact, your eyelids grow heavy from the gentle heat, from the rhythm of the crackling wick lamp. Those lamps were carved from soapstone, fed with seal or caribou fat, their wicks made of dried moss or cotton grass. Oddly enough, the people sometimes used the lamp's soot to mark patterns on their faces, symbols of family, luck, or simply beauty that shone even in the long dark. You smile, because it feels almost humanly rebellious to paint your face when the world outside wants to erase you. The walls flicker again, shadows curling like smoke spirits, and you imagine the old stories told here. Tales of raven tricksters, snow gods, and lovers whose breath became the aurora itself. Your pulse slows. The howling wind outside fades into something that sounds more like a lullaby. Somewhere deep in the shelter, a soft sigh rises, and you realize it's your own. The snow, that impossible substance of cold, has turned against its own nature to cradle you. Warmth from frost, safety in silence. You lean back, close your eyes, and for a moment, the storm doesn't matter anymore. The night deepens, and the storm outside begins to mumble rather than roar. You sit cross-legged inside that dim snow chamber, and for the first time, you notice the rhythm of your own breathing. Each exhale floats up like a ghost and curls near the ceiling before melting quietly into the air. It's strange how breath, invisible in warm places, suddenly becomes visible here, a living thread that stitches warmth into the cold. You wonder how the people who built these shelters understood that simple truth, that every breath mattered. You tilt your head and see it, the faint halo where the ceiling glistens. Tiny droplets cling to the surface, not quite melting, not quite freezing. It feels alive, like the shelter is breathing with you. The early Arctic peoples knew that snow wasn't solid ice. It held countless pockets of air. Those pockets trapped heat, forming a natural insulation so perfect that a single human's exhaled warmth could shift the temperature inside by several degrees. Centuries later, engineers would study this phenomenon, trying to replicate it in survival gear and tents. But here, you're seeing it the way they did, through instinct, not instruments. A low rustle stirs behind you. One of the elders moves, adjusting a fur over their shoulder. The fire's glow dances over their face, revealing eyes half closed in contentment. "The snow remembers," they whisper. And you're not sure whether they mean that literally or as a story's beginning. You imagine how generations might have passed this knowledge down, from grandmother to grandson, without ever writing it down. The lesson was simple. Keep your breath inside, never let the warmth escape too quickly, and trust the snow to do its quiet work. You pull your blanket closer, testing the air. It doesn't sting anymore. Instead, there's a faint sweetness, the mingling of smoke, fat, and something mineral. The heat isn't harsh like a fire in a cabin. It's soft even, the kind that seeps into your bones gradually. There's a certain elegance in that balance, almost scientific precision achieved without any tools. Yet historians still argue whether this understanding of heat exchange came purely from observation, or whether spiritual beliefs guided their choices. Maybe both. After all, if you live your entire life under a sky that punishes arrogance, you learn humility from the snow itself. Your gaze wanders to the small vent hole near the top. A ribbon of smoke trails upward, twisting lazily before vanishing into the dark. That vent is your lifeline. Too small, and the air turns heavy. Too wide, and the cold floods back in. The placement has to be exact. There's something quietly genius about that. Engineering born from breath and survival, not blueprints. Some elders believed the vent carried prayers upward with the smoke, a gift to the spirits who owned the sky. A little poetic, a little practical. Maybe that's what makes it work. You shift your weight, and the snow under you sighs softly. The walls glimmer faintly as if the air inside them were exhaling too. Outside, the blizzard pounds the world flat, but in here, everything hums with delicate equilibrium. You realize that this place isn't about conquering nature. It's about making peace with it. These people didn't fight the storm. They befriended it, borrowed its strength. Your breath fogs again, curling into the ceiling's glow. You can almost imagine all those invisible threads, each exhale from countless winters past, woven together to create warmth in the void. And somewhere in that thought, there's comfort. That survival isn't just fire and fur, but faith in something as small as a human breath against the cold. Outside, the wind sighs in defeat, brushing gently against the dome as if to acknowledge your defiance. Inside, your eyes grow heavy. The shelter holds its warmth like a secret, whispering that sometimes the smallest acts, like breathing, like waiting, are the truest forms of endurance. The storm outside fades into a distant murmur, the kind you feel more than hear. Inside the shelter, the air has softened, and your eyes start tracing the shapes of the walls, smooth, deliberate, and almost hypnotic. You can't help but marvel at how every curve seems to know exactly what it's doing. Nothing inside this frozen cocoon feels accidental. It's as though a sculptor carved the snow from memory rather than sight. You reach out, brushing your fingertips across the inner arc, and it's strangely firm, the cold packed tight and even. You wonder how hands, bare or gloved in seal hide, could make something this perfect without it collapsing. You watch one of the elders outside through the small tunnel entrance, his figure bent over a block of snow. He slides a blade, made from bone, polished by decades of use, through the drift as if slicing through cake. The sound is soft and clean. That blade is called a panna, a snow knife, once crafted from walrus ivory before metal came north. You can see how it moves with rhythm, guided not by measurement, but by intuition. One block after another, stacked and tilted, spiraling upward. You realize that each snow shelter, each igloo, as the Inuit called it, was born from repetition. Muscle memory passed through generations. Long before compasses or rulers, builders relied on the feel of balance in their arms. Inside, you study the seams between blocks. There are no gaps, just compacted joints that melt slightly from body heat and refreeze, welding the walls together. It's eerie how simple it looks. Later researchers would call this form corbelled architecture, similar to what ancient stonemasons used in Europe. Though these northern builders likely never heard of such a term, historians still argue whether that resemblance is coincidence or proof of a universal instinct in human design. The urge to build curved shelter when the world turns against you. The elder crawls back in, cheeks flushed, breath visible. He nods toward the dome as if approving its shape, then runs a hand along the ceiling. "See how she curves?" he murmurs. "No sharp corners. Corners make cold." You think about that, the elegance hidden in practicality. Sharp edges break the flow of warmth. Roundness keeps it moving, circulating like a heartbeat. Even here, geometry bends to the rhythm of survival. A child near the fire giggles, trying to mimic the elder's movements, carving little shapes into the snow wall with a tiny tool. You notice she's drawn a spiral, like the sun. It seems absurd in a place where the sun vanishes for months, but that small spiral feels defiant, a reminder of light even when none remains. Some archaeologists later found similar sun shapes carved in ancient snow tools and speculated whether they were symbols of hope or just idle play. The debate never really settled, but maybe it doesn't have to. Not everything human needs to be explained. Some things just need to be remembered. You look up again at the ceiling. It gleams faintly where the firelight touches it. The blocks blend into one another so seamlessly they seem grown, not built. For a moment you picture the whole dome as a single living creature, a shell that listens. Every sound inside bounces gently back. The crackle of flame, the whisper of cloth, a child's breath. The acoustics are strangely perfect, amplifying soft noises while dulling the sharp ones. You murmur a few words, and they come back to you warm, softened, familiar. Outside, the wind picks up again, pushing against the snow, testing it. The dome doesn't budge. Its own weight, perfectly balanced, presses inward just enough to resist. You realize the beauty here isn't just in the making, it's in the trusting. Each builder knows the snow might collapse but builds anyway, counting on experience more than luck. The elder sits back, satisfied. He gestures for you to lie down. "Now it holds," he says. And as you settle against the cool curve of the wall, you understand what he means. The snow holds you, your warmth, your fear, your awe, all at once. Outside is chaos. Inside is symmetry. The white walls shimmer faintly, like they're keeping a promise. The night deepens into that bluish kind of darkness where everything, snow, breath, shadow, melts into one soft hue. You shift closer to the center of the shelter, and the warmth grows stronger, not from the fire alone, but from the quiet bodies around you. The space feels alive, a slow pulse of shared heat, the kind that builds not from flame but from closeness. You begin to understand what the old ones knew, that survival here wasn't a solo act. It was communal, intimate, human. You glance at the corner where two dogs sleep, curled so tightly that they look like furred circles. Their steady breathing rises like a tide, warm air drifting your way. It smells faintly of musk and snow. The people who once lived here, Inuit, Cree, Ojibwe, and others, knew this secret long before modern science had a word for it, that every creature gives heat. Hunters often shared their shelters with dogs, not just out of loyalty or companionship, but because that shared warmth could mean the difference between life and death. There's an old saying that a dog's sleep could keep a man's heart from freezing. And in this moment, it doesn't sound like exaggeration. You watch the fur on your own blanket shimmer in the firelight, its color shifting between bronze and black. Caribou hide, lighter than reindeer skin, but warmer, lines the bed beneath you. You run a hand along it, feeling the fine hollow hairs that trap air like tiny heaters. It's strange to think how evolution built warmth into the very creatures humans depended on, and how humans, in turn, learned to carry that warmth with reverence. When the tribes wrapped themselves in animal skins, it wasn't just practicality, it was gratitude. They whispered thanks to the spirit of the beast before laying down to sleep. The elder notices you staring and smiles faintly. "The dogs guard your dreams," he says, his voice slow and deliberate, "and the fur guards your life." You imagine generations before you, huddled just the same way, trusting their dogs more than fire, knowing that a heartbeat beside you could warm more surely than any ember. There's tenderness in that, a quiet defiance against the cold. Somewhere near your feet, the dogs stir. One lets out a low sound, half sigh, half growl, and then resettles, his nose tucked under his tail. You feel a flicker of amusement, the same kind of comfort that comes from an old friend's snoring. In some northern legends, it was said that dogs carried pieces of the human soul, lending it strength in the long winters. Maybe that's why their presence feels so grounding here, like a living promise that tomorrow will come. Scholars, of course, have spent decades puzzling over just how these shelters could maintain livable warmth in such impossible conditions. Some argue it's purely the physics of snow and fat lamps. Others insist the secret lies in the shared body heat of people and animals, a kind of natural equilibrium where no energy goes to waste. The debate never ends, but the truth is probably both. Science and closeness. Physics and faith intertwined like the threads of a blanket. You lie back, the furs sighing beneath you, the air thick with quiet. The dogs breathe, the people murmur in sleep. Your own breath joins theirs, rising, mingling, forming that invisible cloud of life that holds the shelter together. It's beautiful in a way that's almost absurd, this fragile cocoon of snow and flesh standing firm against the world's frozen teeth. You close your eyes and imagine dawn, when the cold outside will glitter harmlessly against the walls, defeated for another night. Inside, warmth lingers, not fierce like fire, but soft and loyal, like the heartbeat of a friend pressed against your side. The fire flickers low, its orange tongue licking the air like a restless thought. You lift your gaze toward the tiny hole above, the one thread that connects this buried world to the sky. Smoke drifts through it in lazy spirals, and for a moment it looks like breath from some great sleeping spirit. The air here has its own rhythm, a pulse of inhalation and exhalation that feels almost alive. You start to understand that warmth isn't just about temperature, it's about balance. You watch as the elder adjusts the vent with a bone scraper, widening it just enough for the smoke to slip free. He does it with practiced precision, the same care you might take tuning a musical instrument. Too much air, and the cold rushes in, slicing like knives. Too little, and the smoke thickens, pressing against your lungs until you cough yourself awake. The wind speaks, the elder says softly. You only have to listen. His words hang there, half wisdom, half lullaby. The walls faintly shimmer as the warm air moves upward. You notice that the ceiling isn't pure white anymore. It's glazed with a thin sheen of ice, catching the light like polished glass. That's the strange secret of these shelters. As people breathe and cook, moisture from their breath rises and freezes along the upper dome, creating a thin ice layer that strengthens the structure while keeping heat trapped below. It's a paradox of nature, the cold protecting the warmth. Somewhere near the tunnel entrance, a younger hunter crouches, poking at the fire with a stick of driftwood. You see how the flames dance differently here, subdued, respectful. They're fed by animal fat instead of wood, a resource too precious to waste. The flickering light reveals every curve of the dome, like a heartbeat seen from inside the body of the earth itself. It's funny. You never thought air could feel heavy, but it does here. Every breath you take seems to linger, thickened by heat and smoke. Yet the people breathe easily, accustomed to this rhythm. They even hum sometimes. Low tunes that mingle with the crackle of the lamp. Those hums, you're told, help the air move. Vibrations shifting the currents just enough to keep things circulating. A strange thought, maybe. But the sound feels comforting, as if the house itself is singing along. There's a story the elders tell about a man who forgot to make a smoke hole one winter. When his lamp filled the dome with soot, he claimed to see faces forming in the smoke, ancestors warning him to carve the opening or risk suffocating. Whether it's a ghost tale or a clever reminder for survival, you can't say. Either way, he never forgot again. Modern researchers later confirmed that the vent's placement was no accident. The small hole, usually tilted slightly downwind, allowed airflow to draw fresh oxygen through the entrance tunnel and push stale air out above. It's practical science wrapped in poetry. But still, scholars debate whether early builders consciously understood convection or simply discovered it through trial and prayer. Maybe both are true. After all, when you live by observation alone, the line between science and spirituality blurs until they're the same thing. You feel the faint tug of wind through the vent, a slow, invisible breath passing across your cheek. It's oddly soothing, that reminder that the world outside still exists, even if you can't see it. You imagine the aurora gliding silently above, the stars frozen mid-laughter, and you realize that this tiny hole is more than ventilation. It's a window to the infinite. The elder sits back, satisfied, the smoke now trailing straight as a thread into the night. The dome hums again with equilibrium. You lie back, breathing in rhythm with the shelter, and the thought settles quietly in your chest. Even air can be tamed with patience. You wake to the sound of scraping, slow, deliberate strokes cutting through the hush. The air smells faintly metallic, edged with the tang of cold snow. Through the dim light, you see the elder outside, crouched near a mound of white, shaping something with calm, steady hands. His movements are rhythmic, almost ceremonial. You shuffle closer and watch as he draws a long curve with a tool that gleams like polished ivory. The sound it makes, shur, shur, is hypnotic. He's crafting a scraper, you realize, from the rib of a caribou. The tool's edge glows faintly in the weak daylight that filters through the snow. It looks simple, but every line is purposeful. Here, tools are more than objects. They're extensions of instinct, refined over centuries of frozen mornings. The people who lived in these lands didn't just survive the cold. They sculpted it into something usable. They carved snow knives from bone or antler, designed to cut compact blocks without shattering them. Later, when trade brought metal, the shapes stayed the same. The design was already perfect. The elder glances up and gestures for you to try. You take the scraper, its surface smooth and cold against your fingers. You drag it across the snow's crust and feel the resistance melt away under pressure. The line forming with surprising ease. It feels almost alive, the snow responding like clay, pliable under patient hands. You begin to understand why they called snow the soft stone. In a world with no trees, this was the material of life. Walls, beds, lamps, and even toys were made from it. Nearby, a young woman is busy scraping thin strips of hide, stretching them across a frame to dry. The rhythm of her movements matches the elder's, an unspoken duet of necessity. The scent of the hide mingles with the cold, sharp air. These strips will become binding cords, snowshoe straps, or even the ties that hold the lamp wick steady. Nothing here goes to waste. Even the dullest bone finds new purpose. You glance at your hands and think about how numb they'd be without gloves. Yet theirs move freely, fingers bare against the frost. They say that over time, people's skin adjusted, toughened against cold in ways science can barely explain. There's a curious story about how some hunters used to rub snow on their hands before working outside, training their bodies to tolerate the chill instead of fight it. Strange as it sounds, it worked for them. Inside, someone sharpens a snow knife on a piece of stone, humming softly. The blade isn't meant to cut flesh. It's for shaping the frozen earth itself. Later researchers would marvel at how precise these tools were, comparing their efficiency to modern saws. Yet historians still debate whether this craftsmanship developed in isolation, or if it was influenced by contact with northern Siberian peoples across the Arctic Circle. The migration routes blur with time, like footprints buried in new snow. The elder finishes carving and holds up the blade for you to see. The tool remembers the hand, he says, turning it so the light dances across its surface. You understand then that each tool carries more than function. It carries memory. Every ridge and groove is shaped by repetition, by generations who learned through failure and frostbite, who measured success by how long they stayed alive. You watch as he places the blade beside a row of others, each slightly different in shape, each carrying the story of the one who made it. The tools gleam faintly in the dim light, like a choir of ghosts. You reach out, touch one, and it's colder than you expect, but somehow comforting. You realize that in this world, even cold things can hold warmth, so long as they were made with care. You wake to the soft rustle of pine needles, their faint resin scent drifting through the shelter like a forgotten melody. The air feels gentler today, less sharp, more forgiving, and the ground beneath you has a strange spring to it. When you press your palm down, you realize you're lying on a bed made of pine boughs, layered so thickly that the cold can't reach through. It's soft, almost buoyant, and when you move, it crackles quietly, like distant fire. The elder catches your curious look and smiles. "The earth must never touch your skin," he says, as if quoting something older than himself. You understand what he means the moment you shift your weight and feel the faint chill beneath the lowest layer. Cold seeps upward faster than it falls from the sky, and the people here learned that early. They built their beds like floating islands, raised above the frozen ground so the air could circulate beneath. It's a trick that modern campers still use. Without realizing its roots, stretch back hundreds of winters. The bedding itself is a masterpiece of improvisation. Pine boughs topped with woven mats of grass, caribou hide, or sealskin. Each layer has its own purpose. The branches trap air, the grass adds cushion, and the hide reflects heat. You press your fingers into it again, feeling the difference immediately. It's not just warm, it's dry, which in this world means survival. You watch as a young woman reshapes her sleeping space near the fire. She fluffs the pine needles like someone tending a modern mattress, then smooths the caribou hide across the top. It's oddly domestic, comforting even, to see such care taken in a place so harsh. There's something deeply human about the ritual of making a bed, even in a snow dome. Outside, the wind moans low against the walls, and a faint powder drifts through the tunnel entrance. You tuck your furs tighter around you, breathing in the mingled scents of pine, smoke, and animal oil. It's not unpleasant, just honest, the smell of a world that doesn't apologize for itself. The air feels slightly damp where the snow walls melt and refreeze, but the bedding stays warm. Someone mutters a small prayer, thanking the trees for their branches. That's when it strikes you. Even here, far above the tree line, where real forests barely grow, they still carried the forest with them in memory. The pine boughs, brought from lower valleys, were tokens of a softer world. It's said that some families kept small charms under their beds, a feather, a polished pebble, sometimes a bone carved with a spiral. They believed these charms could keep nightmares from finding them, especially during the long months when darkness never ended. You find yourself wondering if it worked, or if the comfort came simply from believing it might. Either way, it's a lovely thought. To think warmth could begin with something invisible. Modern scientists, much later, would test the insulation of those bedding materials and discover how efficient they really were. Layers of air trapped between the branches acted as natural thermal barriers, keeping body heat from escaping into the frozen ground. Still, scholars argue whether this was an intuitive discovery or the product of systematic experimentation over generations. You suspect it was both, a mix of trial, error, and quiet genius whispered from parent to child beside the fire. You settle deeper into your bed, the branches creaking softly beneath you. The faint scent of resin lingers on your fingertips, and your breath clouds the air above your face. The warmth feels earned, like a reward for listening closely to the land. The elder stirs the embers once more before lying down. His voice drifts towards you, low and slow, nearly lost in the sound of the wind. The snow holds the cold, he says, but the pine remembers the sun. You close your eyes to that thought, and it feels true. The bed beneath you carrying a faint echo of summer. A memory of green hidden beneath the white. The night hums around you. That kind of deep silence that isn't empty at all. It's full of small sounds layered over each other. The faint hiss of wind threading through the vent. The whisper of snow shifting above. The steady rhythm of sleeping breaths, rising and falling like ocean waves. You stir beneath your blanket of hides, and the first thing you feel is texture. The buttery softness of fur against your skin. The dense weight that somehow doesn't crush but comforts. Caribou maybe, or muskox. Each pelt carries its own warmth, its own history of life lived under the same northern sky. When you move, a soft creak follows, and you glance toward the lamp where a woman sits awake, tending the wick with a tiny bone pick. The flame burns steady, not high, just enough to glow across her face and glint in the oily surface of the stone bowl. She's melting snow for drinking water, but there's something almost sacred about the way she works. Her breath is slow, her hands certain, as if the act itself is prayer. You realize that for these people, warmth wasn't just physics, it was faith. They believed the fire, the fur, and the snow each carried their own spirit, and survival depended on keeping all three in balance. She catches your eyes and smiles faintly. Caribou's heart is warm even when it sleeps, she murmurs, and you understand she's not talking about the animal anymore. The hide she wears glows faintly gold in the lamplight, and you notice the small embroidery at its edge, a line of tiny triangles stitched in sinew thread. Not decoration exactly, but a kind of signature, a silent thanks to the creature that gave it. Hunters once said that when a caribou offered itself, its warmth lingered in the hide forever. Wearing it close was a way to share that breath. You pull your blanket tighter, inhaling the faint smell of smoke and animal fat. It's not the sterile scent of modern comfort, it's earthy, alive. You think of how those hides were scraped clean, softened with bone tools, then smoked over low flames to waterproof them. Each one took days of work, and the result wasn't just insulation, it was armor. No synthetic fabric has ever quite matched it. Even now, some Arctic travelers swear by traditional caribou clothing, claiming modern parkas feel cold in comparison. Scientists who've tested it agree. The hollow hairs of the hide trap heat so effectively that body warmth barely escapes. The dogs at the far end of the shelter stretch, their breath puffing little clouds that glimmer in the dim light. You notice how their fur glows too, a kind of shared softness that seems to fill the room. The air between you and them feels thick with warmth and trust. For a moment, you wonder what it must feel like to live your entire life measuring safety not by walls or doors, but by how well you can hold heat together with others. A faint laugh stirs among the sleepers. A dream, maybe, and then a voice begins to hum, quiet as a heartbeat. The melody rises and falls, more vibration than sound. It's not a song you recognize, but it feels old, made of syllables that seem to echo the wind itself. The woman by the lamp hums along, eyes half closed. "To keep the dark away," she whispers. And suddenly you realize this song isn't just for beauty, it's for warmth. Every breath, every vibration helps move the air, preventing it from growing stale. Survival here is built on things you'd never think to value. On faith, on rhythm, on the music of breath. Outside, the wind changes direction, pressing against the snow dome. The vent whistles softly, and a few snowflakes fall through, landing on your blanket like tiny stars. The woman looks up at the ceiling and traces a circle in the air. "The sky listens," she says, "so we keep it company." Later, historians would write that these people believed warmth and spirit were the same thing, that losing one meant losing the other. Some argue that this belief was purely symbolic. Others think it shaped their entire philosophy of living. You decide it doesn't really matter which is true. What matters is that it worked. Faith and science can share a bed when the night is cold enough. You close your eyes, still hearing that soft hum echo through the room. The hides breathe against you, heavy but gentle. The snow sighs above, steady and protective. And somewhere between the warmth of the fire and the rhythm of your own pulse, you realize you're not just surviving the cold. You're part of something ancient and tender, where every fur, every flame, and every breath belongs to the same heartbeat. The night drifts on, and hunger hums faintly in the air, a reminder that warmth and food are kin. You shift near the hearth, drawn to the quiet crackle of the lamp where a pot rests over slow flame. The smell finds you first, rich, earthy, heavy with fat. It clings to the air like a promise. Someone stirs the pot lazily, humming under their breath, and the scent deepens until your stomach aches. You realize that in a place this cold, food isn't just fuel, it's heat made edible. A woman ladles a thick stew into a carved wooden bowl and hands it to you. The broth shimmers with a sheen of oil, its surface catching the lamplight like gold leaf. You raise it to your lips, and the warmth blooms instantly, spreading through your body like a sunrise. It tastes of salt and smoke, of something wild and alive. The chunks of meat are tender, surrounded by rendered fat that coats your tongue in comfort. You learn quickly that this is no ordinary soup, it's life condensed. In a world where vegetables vanish beneath permafrost and water freezes before it can boil, fat is treasure. Hunters prized it even more than meat. It burned longer in the body, feeding both muscle and warmth. The elder gestures to the pot. "Seal," he says softly, "and a little snow for flavor." The line makes you smile, but you can't help wondering if he's serious. Later you'll learn that adding snow helped control the temperature of a stew, preventing it from burning. A strange, clever paradox, using frozen water to tame the flame. It's the kind of detail that makes you fall in love with their logic. Nothing wasted, everything balanced. The stew thickens as it cools, and a young boy scrapes the sides of the pot with a piece of hide, licking it clean with the reverence you'd give a dessert. Around you, everyone eats quietly, each spoonful followed by a small sigh of contentment. The fire pops softly, and the air fills with the faint sweetness of burning oil. Someone sets aside a small portion near the vent, murmuring a few words to the spirits. "For the ones outside," the elder explains. You picture ancestors drifting through the snow like soft light, taking their share of warmth before moving on. It's not superstition, it's gratitude, given shape. You eat until your belly hums, until your fingers stop trembling from the cold. The taste lingers long after, coating your throat, soothing you. You realize that this food does more than nourish, it shields. There's science behind it, of course. High-fat diets prevent frostbite by maintaining blood flow and stabilizing body temperature. Modern nutritionists write about it in neat, sterile paragraphs. But here it feels almost poetic, like each mouthful is a promise that the night will be kind. After the meal, someone passes a small cup made from hollow bone. Inside is a cloudy liquid, slightly sour, slightly sweet. You sip it hesitantly and blink in surprise. It's warm. Not from heat, but from fermentation. The flavor reminds you of sea and smoke. It's made from fish, you're told. Buried in snow until it softens and sweetens over weeks. You try not to think too hard about it, but the taste stays with you, complex and strange. The people here say it teaches the tongue to remember winter. It's oddly beautiful. When the bowls are empty, conversation drifts like smoke. They talk about tomorrow's hunt, about where the seals might surface in the ice, about how the moon has been too bright lately for good fishing. The talk is light but careful. Every plan holds the weight of survival. You listen, warmed by their rhythm, feeling how food ties them together like the snow walls around you. Later, as the embers fade, the elder tells you that the lamp's oil comes from the same fat that fed you, that fire and food are brothers born from the same body. You picture the circle of it, the hunt, the flame, the warmth, the life. It's so simple, and yet it feels profound. Historians still debate whether these Arctic diets shaped genetic adaptations over generations, granting the people a unique resilience to cold. Some say yes, others insist it was all behavioral, but in this moment, you don't care about the arguments. You just feel the truth of it settling deep inside you. Warmth is something you eat as much as something you make. The shelter grows quiet again. The pot, now empty, gleams faintly beside the fire. The scent of fat still lingers, soft and comforting. You curl beneath your furs, belly full, eyelids heavy, and think that maybe this is what survival really means. Not a battle against the cold, but a slow, delicious conversation with it. The last thing you hear before sleep is the faint bubbling of the lamp, steady and patient, like the sound of the world breathing beside you. You wake to a low, distant sound, something halfway between a howl and a hymn. It curls through the night air, winding past the snow walls, haunting yet strangely beautiful. You lie still, listening, and realize it's not one voice, but many. Wolves, somewhere beyond the ridge, singing to the moon that hangs pale and fat above the frozen plain. The sound feels ancient, like the heartbeat of the wilderness itself. Inside the snow shelter, everything is calm. The fire flickers softly, throwing liquid gold across the curved walls. The others are stirring now, half asleep, half alert. A young man sits near the tunnel, listening to the song outside. He doesn't seem afraid. If anything, his eyes are wistful. They tell stories, he murmurs. You ask what he means and he shrugs. Wolves talk to each other, and maybe to us. He grins faintly, as if sharing a joke with the night. The elder moves slowly, wrapping his furs tighter around his shoulders. They sing because they're hungry, he says, not unkindly. We all are some nights. His words settle over the room like frost, true and gentle at once. You realize that out here, hunger is not shame, it's company. Someone feeds the fire a little more seal fat, and the small flame brightens, licking the smoke hole. The warmth swells just enough to push back the cold, but you can still feel the edge of it, waiting. One of the women pours water from a sealskin bag into a wooden cup, handing it to a child whose nose glows red from the chill. The child drinks, then snuggles under a fur blanket near her mother, watching the entrance like it's a door to another world. The wolves continue their song, and another sound joins them. A faint creak, the rhythm of wood against stone. You realize it's a small watchfire burning just outside the main shelter. A man sits by it, wrapped in layers, his spear across his knees. His task is simple: keep the fire alive, keep the predators curious but distant. You crawl toward the entrance tunnel to see him better. The cold rushes in as you lift the flap, and for a moment, it steals your breath. The stars above are hard and white, glittering like shards of bone. The watchfire's glow paints the snow in ripples of amber, and the man's silhouette moves slowly, feeding the flames one stick at a time. Later, you learn that this was a nightly ritual across many northern tribes. Someone always stayed awake, sometimes two, not out of fear alone, but respect for the land, for the animals, for the balance between life and death that never sleeps. A lone fire outside the shelter was both signal and shield. It told the night, We are here, we are alive, but we are peaceful. There's a strange detail, the elder tells you, a story that makes you smile. Some nights, instead of keeping wolves away, the watchers would throw them scraps of meat, whispering that it was an offering to the ancestors. They believed that wolves carried messages to the spirit world, that kindness shown to them would be returned as good hunting. Whether you believe that or not, you can't help picturing those silver shapes just beyond the light, pausing mid-howl to listen. Inside, the others begin to drift back into rest. The dogs shift uneasily, but don't bark. They know the difference between danger and conversation. The shelter breathes in rhythm again, the warmth pulsing softly. You close your eyes, and for a moment, the two worlds, the human and the wild, feel woven together by that shared music. Centuries later, explorers would write about this same ritual. Fires kept through the polar night, men standing guard in shifts while others slept. They marveled at the discipline, the quiet endurance. Yet historians still debate whether these nightly watches were primarily for safety or for ceremony. Some say they were pragmatic, born of necessity. Others insist they carried spiritual weight, a way to keep harmony between people and nature. You suspect both are right. In this landscape, every act of survival is also an act of worship. The wolf's song fades at last, leaving the night oddly hollow. The watcher stirs the fire one last time, its sparks spiraling upward like tiny stars escaping gravity. You imagine those sparks drifting into the aurora, merging with the lights that ripple faintly across the horizon. The cold wind brushes your face, and you feel, for one brief heartbeat, that you are part of the same story they're singing out there. Creature and human, cold and flame, all stitched together by survival. You crawl back into the warmth, your breath fogging in the dim light. The last embers whisper softly behind you. The wolves are gone now, but their echo lingers in your chest, low and steady, like a second heartbeat. The night exhales, the snow dome hums, and in that shared silence, you understand why no one here truly sleeps alone. The storm has passed by morning, leaving behind a stillness so pure it almost hums. When you open your eyes, the shelter feels different, brighter somehow, like the snow itself is glowing from within. The fire has dwindled to a lazy pulse, but the air remains soft and breathable. You stretch beneath your furs and listen. The sound that fills the dome isn't silence, it's echo. Every little motion, every breath seems to bounce gently around the curved walls and come back warmer, calmer. You say a quiet word just to test it, and the sound returns like a friend whispering it back. That's when you realize something subtle yet beautiful. This snow dome doesn't just hold heat, it holds sound. It wraps your voice the same way it wraps your body. The air inside feels thick, tender, almost padded. Someone laughs near the entrance, and the sound blooms softly in the space, round and full. Even a cough turns melodic here, stripped of harshness. You imagine long nights like this, when stories carried across the room and never escaped, lingering like perfume. The elder must sense what you're thinking because he smiles. The snow listens, he says, tapping the wall with a knuckle. She remembers what we say. You can't tell if he's teasing or teaching, but the thought feels true. Maybe that's why voices here are gentle, even when the stories are fierce. They speak like people afraid to wake a sleeping spirit. He sits by the dim lamp and begins to hum. One of those deep, slow songs that doesn't seem to belong to any language. The others join in, weaving their tones through his, and soon the dome itself seems to vibrate. The air grows warmer. You swear you can feel it on your skin, a faint pulse rising with every note. Later, you'll read that sound waves can indeed raise ambient temperature in enclosed spaces, though only slightly. But here, even the smallest warmth matters. The song fades into a story, told in a low voice that draws you closer. It's about a man who carved his shelter too large and couldn't fill it with breath, so the cold crept back in. He slept and never woke. Since then, they say, the wise build small, tight homes that echo their heartbeat. A strange story, part warning, part physics. You tuck it away in your mind, half smiling. The blend of logic and legend feels like the soul of this place. Outside, a gust of wind brushes the dome, and for a heartbeat, the walls tremble. Not violently, just enough to make the sound ripple. It's almost like the snow is sighing. The child beside you giggles and slaps the wall. "It's alive!" she says, eyes wide with delight. The elder laughs too. "Maybe it is," he replies. As the morning stretches on, you begin to notice the rhythm of the echoes, the way a single cough turns into a soft murmur, or how your own heartbeat seems louder when the world is still. It's not imagination. The curved architecture focuses sound inward, amplifying the human presence inside. Later explorers would remark on this same phenomenon, describing how speech carried easily through snow houses, allowing families to communicate even in the dim glow of the lamp. Yet some scholars insist this design was accidental, just a result of practicality, not intention. Others argue that after centuries of building, the builders must have known exactly what they were shaping. You imagine them testing sound with a hum, a laugh, a story, refining the dome until even words were warmed by it. The child hums again, and her voice ripples like water, brushing against your ears. For a moment it feels like time folds in on itself, that you're sitting among centuries of storytellers who all left their laughter suspended in the air, waiting for someone to listen again. You close your eyes and speak softly, just one line. It's warm in here. The dome answers with its echo, gentle, almost tender. Warm in here. The sound floats and lingers, then fades. You feel something loosen in your chest, something ancient and small. It occurs to you that maybe this is why humans tell stories at all, to hear them come back to us, reshaped by the space, softened by the world. The fire crackles once, the wind sighs again, and the echoes dissolve into the white quiet. You settle back, furs rustling, listening not for silence, but for what remains after it. The ghost of sound, the memory of warmth, the heartbeat of snow that never truly stops listening. The day begins in uneasy quiet. There's a heaviness to the air, the kind that always comes before the world remembers what it's capable of. You sense it before anyone says a word. The way the light outside looks too pale, the way the dogs twitch in their sleep. The elder steps out through the low tunnel, his silhouette outlined by the weak dawn. He pauses, hand resting on the snow wall, and the gesture alone makes you uneasy. "Sky's cracking," he murmurs. Within minutes, the wind returns, sharper this time, slicing sideways. The dome moans faintly, as if warning you to stay still. Snow hisses against the outer shell, an endless shiver. You can't see much, but you can hear it. The storm reshaping the world above. It sounds like the sky tearing itself apart. Someone tightens the vent plug with a wad of hide. The fire dims, and the orange glow turns soft, flickering in rhythm with the wind's breath. You've already learned not to fear the sound of a blizzard, but this one feels different, personal. The walls tremble just enough to make you glance up every few seconds. A few flakes fall through a crack near the vent, drifting down like lazy stars. The child gathers them on her mitten, giggling until her mother pulls her close. The small laughter dies into silence, but not from fear. It's more like awe, the recognition of nature's absolute command. The elder moves quietly, checking the joints of the dome. He presses his ear against the wall, listening to something you can't hear. You wonder what he's waiting for. A shift, a sigh, a secret rhythm in the snow. He takes a deep breath and begins to pat the walls gently, strengthening weak points. A sound like soft drumming. The others join in, moving around the interior, reinforcing the shelter with calm precision. You do the same, feeling the vibration through your palms. The snow, once loose, begins to compact again, hardening slightly with each careful strike. It's strange, almost absurdly gentle. Humans punching back at a blizzard with nothing but patience. The wind howls harder now. The tunnel outside has vanished, sealed shut by drifting snow. For a heartbeat, panic scratches the back of your throat. You imagine suffocating, entombed in white, but then you notice how no one else panics. The elder simply picks up a carved antler rod and stabs through the tunnel's entrance from the inside, opening a thin airway. Breath for breath, he says, as if speaking to the storm itself. That phrase stays with you, breath for breath. It's how they survive, not by fighting nature, but by matching its rhythm. The storm continues for hours, maybe days. You lose track of time in the dim light. You nap, wake, nap again, lulled by the relentless whisper of snow on snow. Food becomes ritual. Small bits of dried meat are passed hand to hand. Water is melted slowly from scoops of snow pressed against the lamp's side. There's a calm efficiency in everything they do. You can tell they've been through worse. When the wind finally falters, the silence is startling. No one speaks for a while, as if waiting to be sure it's truly gone. Then slowly they begin to move. The elder clears the vent first, then the tunnel, carving carefully until a weak beam of daylight slips through. The first breath of fresh air floods the shelter, crisp and bright, smelling of sky. Everyone exhales together. You realize you've been holding your breath without knowing it. Later, sitting by the rekindled flame, the elder tells you of storms that lasted weeks, when families had to dig tunnels from one shelter to another beneath the drifts. You picture that hidden world. Villages sleeping under snow, light glowing through translucent walls, people walking through silence as thick as dream. Some researchers later confirmed these subterranean passages existed in harsher regions, serving both for safety and for community. Yet scholars still argue whether they were pre-planned networks or desperate improvisations during endless storms. The truth, as always, is probably somewhere between necessity and ingenuity. The dome creaks as the sun rises, and the snow outside begins to glitter. Someone opens the tunnel wider, and a cascade of powdered light falls through, painting the walls with gold. The air smells clean, new, reborn. The child laughs again, this time louder, and the sound feels like the sky forgiving everyone for surviving. You look around the shelter, at the smooth walls and the soot-stained ceiling, and realize that what saved you wasn't strength. It was tenderness. The storm could break mountains, but it couldn't break this. The patience of hands, the rhythm of breath, the quiet faith that snow could hold life instead of taking it. Outside, the world glows blinding white, but inside, everything feels warm enough to be eternal. The storm leaves behind a silence so pure it almost aches. The snow outside lies smooth and unbroken, reflecting the weak sunlight in a million tiny sparks. Inside, the air has changed, lighter now, almost playful. You sit near the entrance tunnel as the first whispers of wind sneak through, gentle for once, carrying a faint taste of salt from the distant sea. For the first time in what feels like forever, it's not a sound of threat, but of promise. The people begin to stir slowly, stretching beneath their blankets, rubbing the sleep from their faces. No one rushes. Morning here isn't a clock, it's a feeling. The elder opens the tunnel wide enough for light to enter, and the glow floods the space, touching each face like a blessing. You can see how the weariness melts into calm. There's laughter again, soft but real. The storm is gone, and in its wake, something else arrives, the memory of warmth, of home, of a world waiting beneath the snow. Breakfast is small but cheerful. Scraps of dried meat softened in warm broth, a little oil for the lamp, melted snow poured into carved cups. You eat slowly, savoring the way the salt lingers on your tongue. The air smells faintly of pine and smoke, the scent of resilience. After the meal, a child asks a question you can't quite catch, and the elder's answer turns into a story. That's how mornings here begin, not with orders, but with tales. The story is of the green time, the weeks when the ice melts and the land breathes again. He speaks of rivers breaking open like veins, of fish shimmering in the sunlight, of grass so soft you could sleep on it. His voice drops lower as he describes flowers that bloom for only 3 days before vanishing back into the earth. The younger ones listen wide-eyed, their hands resting on their knees. You can feel the ache in their silence, the yearning for a season they can't even remember. Dreams keep you warm, the elder says, smiling faintly. Even in the cold months, your mind must travel. You feel the truth of it. Here, imagination isn't an escape, it's survival. The thought of summer, of warmth, color, and abundance is a spark no storm can smother. You glance around the dome and see the walls still shimmering faintly from the storm's pressure. Smooth as polished glass, the light refracts softly, giving everything a golden halo. It's easy to believe in magic in a place like this. You ask the elder if they always tell stories of summer and winter. He nods. We tell what we miss most. That's how we make it real again. Later, you learn that this tradition existed across many northern peoples. Oral stories that followed the rhythm of the seasons. Winter tales were about warmth and light. Summer tales were about endurance and snow. It was a balance, a way of teaching gratitude without using that word. The Inuit, for instance, told stories of Sedna, the sea goddess, whose moods controlled the hunt. If you forgot to respect the warm seasons, she would freeze your nets and hide the seals beneath the ice. That story wasn't just belief. It was memory, wrapped in myth. The elder's voice carries a melody now, half chanted, half spoken. He describes a place called the Sleeping Valley, where the snow turns blue when spring comes, glowing from within like trapped moonlight. You know it's probably just reflection, some trick of the sun on melting ice. But part of you doesn't care. The image stays with you. A valley where the snow itself dreams of color. A few of the younger hunters whisper to each other, planning the coming thaw, tracing routes with their fingers on the packed floor. Their excitement is quiet but contagious. You can feel the pulse of life returning, the faint hum of readiness. The storm has passed, the food is low, but the spirit is unbroken. That's the secret, you realize. The reason these people outlasted centuries of winter. They didn't just endure, they imagined their way through. Some historians have debated whether such stories were purely symbolic or served as coded guides for seasonal survival. Were they allegories or maps disguised as myths? Perhaps both. Each tale was a layer of wisdom, spiritual, practical, emotional, all hidden beneath its poetry. You think about that as the elder finishes his story, his final words drifting through the dome like smoke. Even the snow remembers summer. It waits beneath its skin. The air grows still again, and you find yourself staring at the faint cracks of light slipping through the vent. The world outside has not changed much, but something inside you has. You understand now that survival isn't always about building walls against the cold. It's about keeping a window open in your heart for warmth that doesn't yet exist. As you lie back on your pine bed, the snow seems to glow a little brighter, as if listening to your thoughts. You close your eyes and picture the green time yourself. Rivers laughing through open valleys, the musk of wet earth, the shimmer of fireflies dancing in the brief northern dusk. You can almost feel the sun on your face, heavy and kind. When you exhale, the breath rises, curls against the ceiling, and disappears into the soft blue glow. You wonder if maybe, in some small way, your dream helps keep the snow warm too. You wake to laughter, the kind that spills through the air before your eyes even open. The storm, the fear, the long silence, all of it feels distant now. The dome hums with a different energy, lighter, playful. Someone's telling a joke near the fire, words muffled by thick fur and warm breath. But the rhythm alone is enough to make everyone grin. You stretch beneath your blanket and the soft creak of pine needles answers. For the first time in days, it feels like the world outside isn't just surviving. It's alive. The air smells of smoked fish and pine resin. A young boy kneels near the fire, holding a strip of dried meat over the flame until it curls, sizzling faintly. He blows on it before taking a bite, and the crackle of his laughter fills the space again. The elder glances at you amused. You see, even the cold has a sense of humor. His eyes gleam with mischief. He's not wrong. There's something unexpectedly joyful about this morning. The way the firelight dances across faces. The way the air feels thick with shared warmth. You notice the children chasing their own shadows on the curved walls, their giggles echoing like birds in a cave. Every sound seems to multiply, wrapping the shelter in invisible warmth. It's easy to forget the cold just outside. One of the women tosses a handful of pine needles into the fire, and the flames flare bright for a moment, releasing a smell so fresh it cuts through the musk of smoke. It keeps the spirits awake, she explains, grinning. Whether she means the human ones or something else, you can't tell, but it works. The scent fills you with alertness, with a strange kind of optimism. You start to realize that this laughter isn't carelessness, it's strategy. Joy here is a tool, a kind of defiance. In a land where the sun disappears for months, humor becomes survival. The people of the far north learned long ago that the body can be warmed by heat, but the heart only stays alive through laughter. It's one of those truths that feels so simple, it almost seems divine. The elder begins telling a story, and everyone settles down. It's about two brothers who argued so fiercely during a hunt that the spirits of the wind froze their tongues together. The only way to separate them, the tale goes, was to wait until spring thaw. For weeks they had to hunt, eat, and sleep side by side, sharing every breath. By the time the ice melted, they had become closer than ever, though, as the elder adds with a grin, one of them spoke with a lisp for the rest of his life. The room erupts in laughter again. Even the dogs, half asleep in the corner, raise their heads, tails thumping softly. Later, as the laughter fades into easy quiet, you realize how vital this shared humor is. Modern researchers once studied the psychology of polar explorers and found that groups who joked often and told stories were far more likely to survive extreme conditions than those who remained stoic. Somehow, these people already knew that centuries ago. They understood that laughter isn't just noise, it's warmth made audible. The elder takes a deep breath and gazes at the ceiling, his face thoughtful now. "Children of the north wind," he says softly, "learn early that the cold teaches patience, but the heart teaches play." You can hear pride in his voice, not arrogance, but reverence for the generations before him who carried this balance through endless winters. Somewhere in the corner, an old woman hums a tune so soft it almost disappears into the sound of the fire. It's not sad though. It's full of small rising notes, like footsteps through new snow. The children join in, making up silly verses, their voices wobbling with laughter. It's chaotic and beautiful, the kind of noise that makes you forget the edges of the world. Outside, the sun begins to climb, pale but persistent. Through the vent, a single beam of light slips in and dances across the smoke. It lands on the child's face, who giggles again and tries to catch it with her mitten. The elder chuckles. "See? Even the sun wants to play." You smile because you believe him. In this frozen world, warmth isn't a luxury, it's a skill. And the greatest masters are the ones who can summon laughter from breath, sunlight from shadow. Some historians later wondered whether these constant songs and jokes had a practical purpose, perhaps to keep people awake, to circulate the air, to maintain morale. Others dismissed it as coincidence, simple human nature. But sitting here, wrapped in the soft thunder of laughter and the glow of firelight, you know the truth runs deeper. The cold may rule the land, but the people rule the cold. With stories, with teasing smiles, with a joke whispered just loud enough for the snow to hear. You close your eyes, listening to them laugh, and it feels like the sound could melt glaciers. Maybe, in some quiet way, it already has. The sun, thin and hesitant, hovers just above the horizon like it's unsure whether to return. The snow outside has hardened into glassy waves, a frozen sea stretching endlessly in every direction. Inside the dome, though, there's movement, quiet preparation, the sound of leather being tightened, of tools checked and wrapped in hide. It's trade day. Even here, where everything seems still, life connects across the distances. Warmth, it turns out, travels not only through bodies, but through stories, goods, and human hands meeting in frost. You follow the small group as they pack. Each bundle is neat, deliberate. Furs folded with their soft sides inward to preserve the heat, carved bone tools tied together with sinew cords, and strips of dried fish stacked like currency. The elder oversees everything with the same calm patience he gives to the fire. You watch him tuck a small pouch into his belt, murmuring something that sounds like thanks. Later, you'll learn that every journey begins with gratitude. No one steps into the white without first speaking to it. Outside, the cold hits like a wall. The air tastes metallic, sharp enough to bite your lungs, but the people move easily, their breath misting in unison. The dogs are eager, tails high, harnesses jingling softly. The sleds creak forward, cutting narrow paths through the drifts. The snow underfoot sings with each step, a sound that only comes when the temperature drops below anything you'd think survivable. The trade route, you learn, stretches farther than your imagination. Across tundras and frozen bays, small encampments link together like beads on a thread, each tribe exchanging not only goods, but warmth, ideas, and laughter. Furs for tools, fish for stories, names for songs. It's a network of survival woven out of trust. Centuries ago, these routes connected peoples from the Alaskan coast to Greenland, long before outsiders drew borders on maps. Anthropologists later called them the arteries of the Arctic. You can see why. They carried more than goods. They carried heartbeat. Halfway across a frozen inlet, the group stops. The wind stills and sound disappears. The only noise is the soft panting of the dogs. One of the men opens his pack and pulls out a small carved figure, a seal smoothed from whalebone and wrapped in red thread. He sets it gently on the snow, facing north. "For good exchange," he says with a grin. It's part joke, part ritual. Some travelers used to leave tiny gifts in the snow before trading, a gesture of goodwill toward both spirits and strangers. You find it oddly touching. This belief that even the wind appreciates manners. When they reach the other camp, warmth greets them in the form of smiles. The newcomers' snow houses are arranged in a crescent, their vents trailing faint ribbons of smoke. Children dart between them, faces flushed pink. The air smells faintly of seal oil and laughter. It's strange how quickly strangers stop being strangers when the world outside is this vast. You're handed a drink of something warm, sweet and briny, maybe fish broth, and it fills you with energy like sunlight under the tongue. The trade begins not with haggling, but with stories. Each side tells where they came from, what storms they've seen, who they've lost, what the sky looked like last week. Only after the stories come the goods. There's an easy rhythm to it, a dance of generosity. When a piece of carved ivory changes hands, it feels less like commerce and more like promise. You understand then that trade isn't just about need, it's about connection, a way of keeping loneliness from settling too deep into the bones. Historians later argued over how much of this trade was organized versus instinctive. Some insist it formed structured economies, others see it as spontaneous, guided more by friendship than strategy. But standing here, feeling the warmth of strangers' laughter, you know the truth isn't found in data. The exchange itself, the human act of giving and receiving, was its own kind of shelter. As dusk folds over the snowfields, the two groups share a meal, a stew so rich and smoky it seems impossible it came from this landscape. Someone starts drumming on a hide stretched over a pot, the beat soft but steady, like the thump of a heart under layers of fur. A woman rises and begins to sing, her voice low and clear. It carries across the snow and back again, caught by the curved walls of the shelters. For a moment, it feels like the entire Arctic is breathing with them. You realize that warmth isn't confined to domes or fires. It's something that travels in voices, in trade, in trust. The night grows colder, but the laughter grows louder, until even the stars seem to pulse along. When you finally lie down again beneath your furs, the echoes of the song still linger in your chest. You think of the tiny carved seal resting somewhere under the snow, guarding the path between one shelter and the next. And before sleep claims you, one quiet thought drifts through your mind. In a world made of ice, the only thing that truly travels farther than cold is kindness. The sky is a pale sheet of grey, stretched thin like old parchment, and the world below glows faintly blue. You've seen this light before, the strange hour between day and night when nothing seems quite real. The air hums quietly, carrying the scent of smoke and animal oil. Inside the snow dome, you feel the heartbeat of the place. Low voices, the shuffle of furs, the slow rhythm of a bone ladle stirring the fire's wick. Everything is steady, ordinary, alive. But tonight, the elder is preparing something different, something that feels both spiritual and scientific at once. He kneels beside the lamp, his shadow flickering up the curved wall like a living echo. Beside him lies a bowl carved from soapstone, blackened from years of use. He fills it with seal oil and adds a wick twisted from Arctic cotton grass. The lamp hisses as it catches flame, and the scent of burning oil fills the air, heavy and familiar. Its warmth you can hear, a low, steady whisper, ancient as breath itself. The lamp is the sky, the elder says, his voice soft. The fire is the sun, and the smoke, our prayers. You sit closer, drawn in by the glow. The flames move as if alive, curling like a spirit learning to dance. The others gather too, faces lit in amber and gold. No one speaks for a long time. The air between you feels charged, dense, sacred. It's strange, this quiet fusion of faith and practicality. The realization that every act of survival is also ceremony. Long before explorers charted the Arctic, people here used these lamps not only for light, but for life itself. They melted snow for water, cooked their meals, dried their clothes, even softened hides beside the flame. It was, in every sense, the hearth of the Arctic. Some say the lamp's smoke carried dreams upward, connecting the living to the unseen. Others saw it simply as a marvel of balance. Just enough oxygen, just enough fuel, just enough patience. Both explanations feel true. The elder motions for a young woman to add more oil, and she does so with reverence. Her hands tremble slightly, not from fear but from respect. You notice that when she finishes, she wipes a finger through the soot and draws a line across her cheek. The mark gleams faintly, catching the firelight. For sight, she says, to see truth in the dark. It's a custom you've never seen before. Later, she tells you that the soot from the lamp was believed to strengthen vision in long winters when the eyes grew weak from constant whiteness. You don't know if it's science or spirit, but you find yourself believing it anyway. The elder begins to hum, low and steady, and the sound fills the dome. It's not a song exactly, more like vibration. You can feel it in your bones. The others join in, voices weaving together until the walls themselves seem to hum back. The snow shivers softly, as if agreeing. There's something mathematical about it, frequencies merging, creating warmth from nothing but resonance. You wonder if the old ones knew, even without words, that sound carries energy, that it moves air and shifts heat. Somewhere in your memory, you recall reading that scientists have measured the temperature inside these domes rising slightly during communal songs. The theory was dismissed by some as coincidence. Others argued it was proof that humans can, in small ways, change their own climate through vibration. You think of that now, listening to these people sing in perfect harmony with their own survival. The song fades, but the warmth remains. The elder smiles faintly and gestures for you to breathe deeply. The air feels thicker now, almost sweet. You realize you're not just inhaling heat, you're inhaling centuries of practice, generations of people learning to merge faith with observation. Here, physics and prayer share the same fire. He begins to tell a story of a healer who once traveled across the tundra carrying nothing but a single lamp. Each night, he lit it in a snow hollow, melting just enough water to drink and leaving a ring of soot behind. They say when he finally reached home after months away, the black soot on the snow still marked every place he had rested, a trail of smoke prayers stretching across the white world. The elder chuckles softly. Maybe that's how stars were born, he says. The others laugh, but it's the kind of laughter that feels like affection. You find yourself thinking that maybe he's right. Maybe every act of care, no matter how small, leaves a spark somewhere in the dark. As the lamp burns lower, you notice how the flame changes, growing smaller but brighter, more focused. The elder leans close and whispers something you almost miss. The fire listens when you listen back. You don't fully understand, but the words settle deep in you. The flame wavers, and for a fleeting moment, its glow looks like breath frozen in midair. Outside, the wind has died. The night feels impossibly still, the kind of stillness that magnifies every flicker of light. Inside the dome, the lamp continues to burn. Faith, chemistry, and love all bound in one trembling flame. You realize then that warmth isn't only something you feel. Sometimes it's something you believe in first. Later that night, when the others have drifted to sleep, the lamp's flame still glows faintly, painting soft orange halos across the dome. You stay awake, watching the light sway in rhythm with your heartbeat. Every so often, the wick sputters, sending up a puff of black smoke that curls against the ice-glazed ceiling before vanishing. The smell of soot clings to your hair, earthy and familiar. You find comfort in it. It's proof of life, of combustion, of something human against the endless cold. You think about what the elder said earlier, about smoke being a kind of prayer. It's poetic, yes, but also strangely scientific. The soot that clings to the ceiling is carbon, evidence of transformation, of energy exchanged between living and dead matter. It's proof that even in the smallest act of burning, something passes from one state to another. Maybe that's all prayer really is. Transformation disguised as gratitude. In the dim light, you study the tools beside the lamp. Stones worn smooth by centuries of use, small bones polished to gleam, threads of sinew coiled neatly like veins of an ancient creature. Everything here feels alive. You realize that science, spirit, and craft are not separate worlds in this place. They are one and the same language. The elder stirs in his sleep and mutters something, a word you don't know, low and melodic. You whisper it back, softly, letting it roll off your tongue. It feels round, almost heavy, like a snowball. You wonder what it means. Maybe it's just a dream word, something that belongs to the half space between sleeping and remembering. When you finally lie down, the firs whisper beneath you, still warm from shared breath. Outside, faint light ripples across the sky, the aurora sliding like silk over the stars. You crawl halfway out of the tunnel to see it better. The cold hits you like a slap, shocking but pure. The lights above twist and shimmer, green and violet, alive as thought itself. For a long time you just watch. The lamp's faint glow behind you feels like an echo of that celestial dance. The same energy scaled down to human size. You remember something the elder told you once, that the spirits of the sky feed on smoke, that when people stopped burning their lamps at night, the aurora grew lonely. It sounds fanciful, but you can't deny the symmetry, the way the two lights mirror each other, one in the heavens, one in the snow. Historians later debated whether northern people saw the aurora as omen or friend. Some said they feared it as the souls of the dead. Others called it a fire that warmed the sky. The truth, like most things here, depends on the night you ask. You stay there until your eyelashes freeze, then crawl back in, bringing the cold with you. The dome sighs as it adjusts, the air inside shifting, alive again. You reach out toward the dying flame, cupping your hands as though to protect it. The warmth brushes your palms, a fragile, living heartbeat. For a moment, you understand everything. The healer's trail of soot, the hum of the songs, the careful tending of the vent. It's all the same story, told in different dialects of survival. Each small act, feeding a fire, whispering a prayer, adjusting a wick, is a way of saying, we are still here. When the lamp finally fades, you lie back and stare at the faint orange ghost it leaves behind on the ceiling. The silence returns, vast but no longer empty. You close your eyes and imagine smoke rising through the vent, curling into the stars, carrying your breath with it. Somewhere above, maybe, the aurora stirs a little brighter. You drift towards sleep with one last thought, the kind that doesn't belong to words, but to warmth itself. That every fire, no matter how small, dreams of being the sun. The dome glows amber again, that half-light that blurs the border between warmth and shadow. Someone hums a tune so soft you feel it more in your ribs than your ears. Outside, wind scratches along the walls, reminding you that the world has not gone gentle just because the storm has passed. Yet inside, there's laughter again. Low, private, the kind that lives in glances rather than sound. Tonight isn't about survival alone. It's about the small, stubborn ways love finds a home even in frost. You notice the way two figures move near the fire, hands brushing as they share a bowl of stew. There's no grand gesture, only small ones. The tilt of a smile, the unspoken rhythm between them. You realize how precious that is here, where life can end between one breath and the next. Affection in this cold is rebellion. It's saying, I will keep you warm even when the world won't. Later, when everyone's eaten and the lamps are turned low, stories give way to silence. The elder retreats into his furs, pretending to sleep, but his eyes still glimmer faintly in the dark. He's seen this dance before. The couple whisper to each other, their voices barely more than the crackle of the wick. You turn away politely, though sound carries easily in a dome like this. You can't help hearing fragments, laughter, soft teasing, a sigh. They make the night feel larger somehow, alive beyond fear. Somewhere in your chest, warmth flickers that has nothing to do with the lamp. You think of how people in every age have used closeness to keep the cold away. Early explorers wrote, sometimes with envy, that Arctic families slept so close together that their breaths merged in the air, forming a single cloud that hung above them all night. They called it communal heat, as if affection could be measured in degrees. Maybe it can. The elder shifts again, half smiling in the dark. The fire's jealous, he says quietly. It burns hotter when it watches lovers. The others chuckle sleepily, but no one argues. There's something comforting in the idea that even the elements notice tenderness, that flame itself bends toward warmth, not just from fat and air, but from hearts refusing to freeze. You think of a story the elder told days ago about a hunter who carried a coal in his chest, a spark given by the sky to guide him through blizzards. Each time he laughed or loved, the coal glowed brighter. When he grew bitter, it dimmed. People still whisper that everyone carries such a coal, invisible but real. Maybe that's why these nights feel warmer when joy lives inside the dome. Across the shelter, the young woman hums a lullaby into her companion's shoulder. The sound curls through the air like smoke, slow, circling, soothing. You feel it settle in your bones. There's science hidden in that song. Rhythm slows the heart, synchronizes breathing, tells the body it is safe. Somewhere centuries later, doctors will study it and give it names. Oxytocin, thermoregulation. But here it's simply instinct, the warmth of skin, the hush of another's breath, the calm of being known. Historians sometimes argue about whether people in the Arctic practiced arranged partnerships for survival, or whether affection grew naturally in these close-knit shelters. Some describe it as strategy, others as romance. Watching them now, you realize it doesn't matter which is true. The outcome is the same. Two souls choosing each other when the world outside offers only silence. The lamp flickers again, flame leaning sideways as if eavesdropping. The elder murmurs one last thing before sleep overtakes him. Love is also a kind of fire. You must feed it carefully. His words linger long after his breathing evens. You close your eyes and listen to the rhythm of their whispers blending with the crackle of the wick, the two sounds twining like threads of the same tapestry. The snow outside presses close, but it feels less like a prison now and more like a cocoon. You understand finally that survival here isn't only about what you build, it's about who you hold. Morning arrives quietly, like a secret unwrapping itself. The vent lets in a beam of light so pale it looks silver. You wake to the smell of warmth, smoke, fur, the faint sweetness of rendered fat. The couple still sleeps near the center, faces turned toward each other, breaths mingling. Their shared body heat has melted a small hollow in the snow floor, a shallow dip glistening with frost. The elder notices it and chuckles. That, he says, is how you know love is real. It changes the shape of the world. The others laugh softly, but there's reverence in it too. You imagine generations who left behind the same delicate marks, impressions in snow, handprints on hides, the lingering scent of two people keeping each other alive. No monument lasts here, no grave or stone. Warmth itself is the record. Outside, light ripples across the horizon, soft pink bleeding into pale blue. The storm has scrubbed the sky clean. Everyone begins to move again, shaking off the night, folding furs, feeding the dogs. The couple works side by side without speaking, their gestures fluent as a shared language. You notice how easily affection folds into routine here. No excess, no performance. Just care, practical and tender. The elder kneels near the lamp, scraping soot from its rim with a bone pick. He mixes the soot with a few drops of oil until it becomes thick and glossy, then traces a small symbol above the entrance. To keep heat from wandering, he explains. You've seen him do this before, but now you realize it's his quiet way of blessing every new day. A reminder that warmth, whether from fire or feeling, needs tending. Later, when the hunting party leaves, the couple stays behind to repair one of the tunnels. You help them shovel, the rhythm hypnotic. The woman hums again, a tune you half recognize, and the man joins in harmony. The sound fills the tunnel, echoing off the ice until it feels like there are 100 voices singing with you. It's a love song disguised as work, or maybe work disguised as a love song. Either way, it keeps everyone moving. When the digging is done, you step outside to rest. The air is razor sharp, so clean it almost rings. The sun sits low, a disk of white fire trembling above the frozen bay. For the first time in weeks, you can see open water far in the distance, a dark vein slicing through the ice, life returning. The sight fills you with hope you didn't know you'd lost. The couple joins you, and for a long while, no one speaks. Then the man says quietly, "When the ice breaks, we travel south." His partner nods. You sense it's not escape they seek, but continuation, a cycle repeating, love carried from one season to the next, like embers in a sealed pouch. Scholars still debate how far these migrations reached, whether families followed herds out of necessity or wanderlust. But sitting here, watching them lean into each other against the wind, you understand that both are true. Movement is life. Love simply chooses the direction. As the sun begins to sink again, you head back toward the dome. The air grows colder, biting at your cheeks, but the sight of that rounded shelter glowing in the dusk steadies you. Inside, the elder tends the fire, humming the same melody the woman had sung. The warmth hits you like memory. The couple enters behind you, their laughter trailing in, soft and genuine. The elder looks up and smiles. "Ah," he says, "the fire has come home." You sit, wrapped again in the glow of fur and flame, and watch as they settle beside each other. Outside, the wind resumes its endless wandering. Inside, hearts answer with steady, patient heat. When sleep finally comes, you dream of snow melting under fingertips, of smoke twisting into the sky, of two small flames, one of oil, one of love, burning side by side, refusing to die. The morning arrives slow and fragile, wrapped in mist that glows pale as milk. The world outside the dome is silent again, as if the storm has taken sound with it. You wake to the gentle rhythm of breathing, steady, peaceful, human. When you open your eyes, the air feels heavier than usual, dense with quiet. The lamp has burned low, its flame a trembling thread. Even the dogs outside are still, their shapes faint shadows pressed against the wall of snow. You sit up and listen. The hush is complete. It isn't the silence of emptiness. It's the silence of listening. You realize that here, stillness isn't absence. It's presence in its purest form. It's the land waiting for breath. The elder stirs and notices your alertness. Do you hear it? He whispers. You nod, though there's nothing to hear but the echo of your own pulse. He smiles faintly. Good, he says. Then you're learning. He gestures toward the wall, where the faintest crack of light glows through the snow. When the world goes still like this, he murmurs, it's telling you to stop moving. Everything that lives must learn silence if it wants to live long. You think about that as he begins his morning routine, feeding the lamp, brushing away frost, checking the vent. His movements are slow and deliberate. He's not fighting the quiet. He's moving with it, as though silence were an element as real as air or snow. The others wake one by one, speaking little, voices low and soft. The usual laughter is gone, replaced by calm. Someone hums faintly while tying a cord, and the sound feels almost too loud for this fragile stillness. The elder raises his hand. Let the air breathe, he says, and everyone falls quiet again. It's strange how quickly the absence of sound becomes its own kind of warmth. You can feel your body relax, your heartbeat slowing to match the rhythm of the space. You imagine the air thickening around you, like the inside of a shell. Outside, light creeps upward, tracing the shape of the dome. You can almost sense the snow's heartbeat. The faint shifts and groans as it expands and contracts. The elder calls it the song beneath hearing. He says those who listen long enough can predict storms by the sound the snow makes when it breathes. Later scientists would confirm that compacted snow layers emit faint frequencies as they settle, a phenomenon you can barely perceive. But these people didn't need instruments to know that. They simply paid attention. He hands you a small piece of fur and gestures for you to rub it between your palms. The motion is slow, almost meditative. You feel heat bloom faintly between your hands. See, he says, you don't always need flame. Stillness can make warmth too. It feels absurdly simple, yet true. You think of how stillness has always been part of their survival. How hunters wait motionless for hours. How travelers stop during whiteouts not out of fear but wisdom. Motion wastes heat. Stillness saves it. What looks like patience is really strategy. As the day deepens, you begin to notice how silence sharpens everything. The soft drip of melting snow sounds like thunder. The flutter of fur feels like wind. The crackle of the lamp is almost musical. The dome becomes a world of miniature symphonies, every sound magnified by care. You catch the elder watching you, and he nods approvingly. Now you see, the loudest thing here is your own heart. He chuckles softly. Most people try to drown it. We learn to follow it instead. Later, the hunters return from their morning track, snow crusted on their shoulders. They speak in murmurs, careful not to break the fragile balance. One of them places a hand on your shoulder and smiles. You listen well, he says. That's the first thing snow teaches. How to hear what doesn't speak. That night, when everyone lies down, you feel the silence stretch again. Soft, warm, infinite. The world holds its breath, and for the first time, you hold yours with it. Hours pass. The dome remains a heartbeat in the endless white. You dream lightly, drifting between waking and memory. The elder's words echo in your mind. Stillness makes warmth too. When you open your eyes again, the lamp has burned to a single coal, but the air still holds the ghost of its heat. The temperature inside hasn't dropped as much as you'd expect. The silence itself seems to trap the warmth. You wonder if that's possible, if the absence of vibration helps keep heat from escaping. You remember once reading that early. Arctic builders deliberately created soundproof spaces by smoothing the inner walls of their snow houses. The smoother the surface, the less turbulence, the less air movement, the more heat remained. They didn't use the word aerodynamics, but they understood its truth. Every curve in the snow served both sound and temperature. Quiet wasn't only for peace, it was for survival. The elder wakes again and begins to speak softly. Not in stories this time, but in fragments, like thoughts half dreamed aloud. The world outside is too full, he says. Noise eats breath. That's why we keep ours slow. His tone is gentle, instructional. In silence you hear what the body needs. Hunger, rest, hope. He gestures toward his chest. Even the heart has two voices. One that beats loud, one that listens. You realize how rarely, in your own world, you listen to the second one. Here, it's impossible not to. The dome teaches you that every sound has consequence, every movement echoes, every breath belongs to something larger than yourself. The hunters begin preparing for the next journey, wrapping tools in sealskin, packing meat into pouches. The soft thunk of snow blocks being cut echoes faintly, precise as drum beats. Every task is done slowly, rhythmically, even speech is measured. It's not just quiet. They've built an entire culture on restraint, on understanding that noise burns energy like fire. You think about how modern life worships speed and chatter, and you feel an ache of envy for this deliberate calm. At one point, a child knocks over a bowl, and the sound rings sharp against the wall. Everyone freezes. The elder doesn't scold. He simply waits. The sound lingers, then fades. "Listen to its tail," he says. The child tilts her head, wide-eyed. "Every sound leaves a tail," he continues. "Even words. They trail behind you longer than you think. You can feel those words sinking into you. Every argument, every careless noise, every thoughtless phrase. How far do they echo in the spaces we don't see?" The elder's lesson is both practical and spiritual at once. Evening comes, painted in gold and violet. You step outside for air. The snow under your boots squeaks faintly, a small protest against your intrusion. The sky is vast, the aurora, a curtain of pale green trembling across it. For a moment, you hear something faint beneath the wind, a crackle like distant static. The elder joins you and smiles knowingly. "That's the lights talking," he says. When the air is right, they whisper. Some hear it, some don't. You listen harder and you swear you can hear it too. A faint hiss, like silk rubbing against silk. Modern scientists later confirmed that under certain conditions, geomagnetic activity can cause faint audible sounds, though the debate never quite ended. Was it real sound or imagined resonance? You decide it doesn't matter. Belief can be a kind of hearing too. You stand there together, watching the sky move. "The lights speak," he repeats, "but only to those who answer softly." Back inside, the dome is warm again. The lamp flickers back to life, fed by careful hands. Everyone sits close but says little. The silence isn't empty, it's filled with trust, respect, and the quiet miracle of being alive. When you finally close your eyes, the last thing you feel isn't the cold pressing outside or even the heat of the fire. It's the weightless calm of a space where stillness itself has become sacred. The snow holds its breath around you, and you drift into sleep knowing that even silence, when shared, is a kind of love. Morning breaks like a secret whispered too softly for the world to notice. The light outside is thin and hesitant, sliding across the horizon in silver ribbons that never quite reach the sun. Inside the dome, the air is heavy with breath and smoke. The night's dreams still hang between the curved walls like invisible frost. You stretch, feeling the stiffness in your limbs. And the first thought that comes is of movement, of the hunters who will soon rise, step into the white, and trace their lives across the snow. The elder is already awake. He sits by the lamp, rubbing seal oil between his palms, the smell sharp and rich. He says it keeps the skin from cracking in the cold. But it's more than that. Ritual, memory, defiance. Every morning he does the same, coating his hands as though armoring them in the scent of survival. "A hunter's hands must remember warmth," he says quietly, "because sometimes it's all they can carry back." Around him, the younger men begin to move. They speak little. The act of preparing for a hunt is a kind of meditation, binding the wrists of their mitts, checking the points of their bone-tipped spears, tightening the cords of their sleds. The dogs watch in silence, their yellow eyes alert. The air fills with the soft jingle of harness rings and the whisper of fur brushing fur. It's beautiful in its quiet precision, a choreography older than memory. You step closer, trying not to disturb the rhythm. One of the men notices and grins. "Come," he says, handing you a strip of dried meat. "It's for courage." You chew, and the salt stings your tongue awake. The taste is both harsh and comforting. He laughs. "It keeps the spirits interested," he adds, and you realize he means it literally. Before every hunt, they eat something small, not for strength, but to let the land know they come as guests, not conquerors. It's a simple gesture, yet it feels sacred. When they finally leave, the world seems to swallow them. The sled runners hiss softly over the ice, the dogs barking once before fading into distance. You watch them become specks against the white, their shadows dissolving into the horizon. The dome feels strangely hollow without them. The women move quietly, mending, tending, waiting. The elder keeps the fire low, conserving oil. Time stretches, hours pass. The wind outside rises and falls like breath. You sit near the tunnel, staring out into nothingness, and you start to understand the strange mathematics of this life. How every action, no matter how small, must balance between energy spent and energy gained. A step too far, a fire burned too long, and the equation fails. Survival here is a constant negotiation between hunger and endurance. By midday, the first shadows appear, tiny shapes moving across the flat world. You feel the shift in the air before you hear the sound, distant barking, then voices. The women stand, pulling back the flap of the entrance. The hunters return, faces windburned, eyes bright. Their sleds are heavy with the shape of the day's luck. A seal, its fur glistening with frost, and a few ptarmigans strung together like pale ornaments. The dogs collapse beside the shelter, tongues out, steam rising from their backs. The hunters waste no time. The work of taking life turns instantly into the work of preserving it. Knives flash, hands move, and you watch as everything, meat, hide, bone, sinew, is separated, nothing wasted. The smell is raw and wild, the kind that reminds you that survival is never clean, never separate from death. One of the women collects a small bowl of blood and mixes it with snow until it turns pink. She drinks, passing it to the next person. It warms faster than fire, the elder explains. It sounds like superstition, but your body tells you it's true. The warmth spreads from within. Later, when the sun dips again, the elder tells a story of the first hunters, the ones who learned to read the wind's footprints before there were words for direction. He says they didn't chase their prey. They followed the song the snow left behind. Some scholars centuries later would dismiss such tales as metaphor, but others found traces of truth. Hunters able to sense faint vibrations beneath the ice, to track seals by the hollow thud of their breathing chambers. Science or sorcery? Who can tell the difference when survival depends on both? The meat roasts slowly on stone slabs, the fat hissing where it meets the flame. The smell fills the dome until you can almost taste it in the air. Outside, the dogs dream, paws twitching, running in sleep through an endless frozen plain. Inside, the people eat quietly, savoring every bite, every scrap, every moment of warmth that food brings. It isn't feasting, it's communion. The elder leans back, eyes closed, murmuring something that might be prayer or gratitude. His voice is rough, but the words melt into the space around him like snowflakes on skin. You understand then that hunting here isn't conquest, it's conversation. The land gives, the people answer, and the silence between them is respect. The next morning begins before light returns. You wake to movement, soft footsteps, the muted clink of tools. The hunters are preparing again, but this time something in their rhythm has changed. The air feels tense, electric. The elder whispers that a storm is coming, and that they must hunt quickly before the sky closes. Outside, the world has turned to steel. The horizon blurs, and the light has that uncanny tone, the color of waiting. You follow as they move out, breath turning to frost that floats in the air like ghosts. Each step sinks into the crust, the sound muffled. The dogs pull hard, their energy fierce and desperate. Far ahead, the lead hunter stops and kneels, pressing his ear to the ice. Everyone falls silent. You do the same and hear it. A hollow knocking beneath the surface, rhythmic, alive. A seal beneath the ice surfacing for air. The hunter nods once, marking the spot with a slender spear. Then begins the waiting, the long, motionless patience that defines this world. Time drips slow. The wind cuts, but no one moves. You learn to listen with your skin, to feel the tremors of life beneath the frozen crust. The elder stands beside you, his breath steady. Don't think about cold, he murmurs. Think about pulse. Find the beat under the silence. When it comes, it happens in a heartbeat. A burst of motion, the sharp crack of ice splitting, the sudden heave of life pulled from water into air. The seal thrashes once, then stills. The hunter's face remains calm, reverent. Thank you, he whispers. And in that moment you realize this is no victory. It's a pact renewed. They work quickly, wrapping the body, sealing the wound with snow to keep the blood from spreading scent. Even here, death is handled with tenderness. The elder marks the spot with a small bone carving, a token left for the spirit of the sea. To remind it, we are grateful, he says. By the time you return, the first gusts of the new storm are beginning to moan across the plain. The dogs pull faster, sleds creaking. The wind howls like a living thing, but no one speaks. There's no fear here, only focus. You watch the hunters move as one organism, measured, precise, unyielding. In their silence, you hear the strength of generations who have walked this same path under the same indifferent sky. Back in the dome, the wind hits hard. Snow rattles against the walls like fingers tapping to be let in. The lamp is lit, the fire steady, and the scent of fresh meat mingles with smoke. Outside, the storm screams. Inside, there is calm. The seal lies cleaned and ready, a gift turned into sustenance. You eat slowly, feeling the day settle in your bones. Fat melts on your tongue, rich and clean. The elder smiles faintly. Now you've eaten the heartbeat of the sea, he says. Tomorrow, it will eat the snow, and the snow will eat the light, and everything will begin again. Later, when sleep comes, the wind still hammers at the dome. You listen to it with a strange tenderness, hearing not anger, but conversation. Each gust is a test, a reminder that life here is never granted. It's borrowed. Long after the lamp burns low, you imagine the hunter's footsteps frozen into the plain, the small bone carving buried under drifting snow, the pulse of the sea continuing far below. You think of the elder's words, find the beat under the silence, and realize they apply to everything, to the wind, to the fire, to the fragile rhythm of human hearts that keep burning against all odds. The storm rages through the night, and you sleep through it, dreaming of footsteps across endless white, following that faint, eternal heartbeat beneath the ice. When dawn finally returns, it feels hesitant, as if afraid to intrude. The storm has died sometime in the night, leaving behind a world that gleams like frozen glass. The snow stretches in perfect silence, sculpted into waves by the wind, curves that shimmer faintly under the first weak light. You crawl toward the tunnel entrance and lift the flap. The air that rushes in tastes sharp and metallic, but it's clean, pure in a way that almost hurts your lungs. You breathe it in and exhale a small cloud that hangs, trembling before it fades. Inside, the others stir one by one. The dome creaks softly, shifting as the temperature rises. The elder sits upright, wrapped in fur, his face half hidden in shadow. Listen, he says. You tilt your head and hear it, the faint drip of melting snow. The storm's fury has softened into this slow rhythm, each drop like a heartbeat falling from the roof. That, he murmurs, is the sound of memory leaving. You glance up. The ceiling glows with thin veins of light, the warmth of breath, the constant fire, the simple act of existing. All of it has begun to melt the inner walls, turning them translucent. The dome, once solid white, now glows like the inside of a pearl. You can see the ghostly shapes of people moving, their shadows blurred into halos. The elder smiles faintly. The house remembers everything, he says, running his palm across the wall. Every story told, every sigh, every dream. When it melts, it carries them away. He's not being poetic. You realize he means it quite literally. When spring comes, these snow shelters will collapse, their walls dissolving into streams that feed the rivers. And in that water, in some impossible, invisible way, the memories will travel too, through ice, through soil, through the bodies of fish and animals and people. The cycle isn't just physical, it's spiritual. The snow becomes memory, and memory becomes water, and water becomes life again. The thought stays with you as you watch the dome brighten. Every tiny droplet glitters, reflecting firelight in miniature. The air inside grows humid, a softness you haven't felt in weeks. The others seem to sense it too. There's no sadness in their faces, only reverence. They've seen this before hundreds of times. To them, this isn't loss, it's renewal. A woman begins to hum while packing dried hides into bundles. Her tune is low, slow, circular, the kind of melody that never quite ends. You find yourself following the rhythm without meaning to. Your hands moving with her pace, folding, tying, storing. The song has no words, but it says everything. We are leaving, but we are not gone. The elder takes a lump of soot from the lamp and mixes it with melted snow in a bowl. He dips his finger in and paints a spiral on the inside of the dome. For the next traveler, he explains, when this wall melts, the mark will follow the water. Maybe it will find its way to someone who needs it. It's such a small act, yet it feels profound. You think of how civilizations everywhere leave traces of themselves. Paintings on rock, carvings in wood, digital code in servers humming far away. But here, in this white world, the art is made to vanish. The proof of existence is meant to dissolve. It's humbling. You ask him why they don't try to preserve these shelters longer, why they let them go so easily. He smiles and shakes his head. Because nothing alive can own the cold, he says. We borrow it, then give it back. Outside, the snow begins to glisten brighter. The hunters step out, faces tilted to the weak sunlight. You follow, your boots sinking into the crust. Around you, the land is alive again, not with noise, but with movement. Small plumes of snow drift across the plain like spirits changing direction. The dogs stretch, yawn, shake off frost from their fur. The horizon glows a little pink, and for the first time, the wind smells faintly of salt and open water. Somewhere beneath the frozen surface, rivers are stirring. You look back at the dome, and it feels almost alive. The way it breathes light, the way its shadow curves gently across the snow. You realize that this house, this fragile masterpiece of snow and breath, was never meant to last forever. Its purpose was to protect, to warm, to hold stories just long enough for them to be remembered. That's enough. As the day deepens, you walk farther from the shelter. The snow crunches beneath your boots, each step sinking just enough to leave a trace. The elder walks beside you, his pace slow but steady. The wind has softened now, reduced to a whisper that moves like breath across the endless plain. Every sound, the creak of your boots, the faint bark of a distant dog, feels magnified, sacred. He stops at a small ridge where the snow dips into a shallow hollow. This, he says, is where I built my first house. You look down and see nothing but smooth white. It's gone, you say. He nods. That's the point. He crouches, presses his hand into the snow and smiles. But the warmth is still here. The ground remembers. You kneel beside him, pressing your palm against the same spot. The snow is cold, of course, but beneath it there's something else, a stillness that feels like patience. The idea that the earth itself might hold memory, that every melted dome leaves behind a trace of warmth too faint to measure, but too real to doubt. He stands and gestures toward the horizon, where faint smoke rises from other domes scattered across the plain. Each one is a heartbeat, he says. When the season ends, all of them melt, and the valley becomes a river. All the heartbeats join again. That's what spring really is. The image fills you with quiet awe. You can almost see it. The snow domes collapsing one by one, their water merging into streams that carry light instead of fire, warmth instead of breath. You imagine walking through that thawed valley months from now, feeling ghosts of shelters beneath your feet, hearing whispers in the running water. Scholars would later marvel at how early Arctic peoples built and abandoned their shelters with such ease, seeing impermanence not as waste but as wisdom. Some argued it was necessity, others saw philosophy. You think it's both. There's a kind of strength in building something perfect and then letting it go. As you return toward the dome, the elder begins to tell another story, a quiet one, half memory, half lesson. It's about a hunter who refused to leave his shelter after spring came. He reinforced it, rebuilt it, tried to preserve it, but the snow betrayed him. The walls softened, the roof caved in, and the warmth turned to water. When his people found him, he was sleeping in the melted ruins, smiling. He thought he could keep the cold forever, the elder says. But the cold keeps us. Inside the dome, the others are packing for the journey south. Furs are rolled, tools gathered, dried food stored in hide bundles. The lamp burns low, its wick trimmed neatly. You notice how even this act, the closing of one life, the preparation for another, is done with the same calm precision as everything else. No one rushes. Nothing is mourned. Before they leave, the elder crouches by the lamp and lets the final flame die. Smoke curls upward, black and elegant, tracing a slow spiral before disappearing through the vent. The silence it leaves behind feels enormous. You realize this is their farewell ritual. They don't extinguish the flame, they release it. As you step outside, the dome glows from within, its walls illuminated by the last trapped light of the day. The air hums with stillness. The elder lingers for a moment, then bows his head slightly toward the shelter. Go, he whispers, as though speaking to the snow itself. Carry our heat to where it's needed. One by one, they turn away and begin walking south. The dogs pull the sleds, the bells on their harnesses chiming softly. The wind rises behind them, gentle, almost tender. When you look back one last time, the dome has already begun to fade into the white, its edges blurring with the landscape. It's both there and not there, a dream dissolving into morning. You keep walking, the rhythm of your footsteps steady. The horizon glows brighter, and in the distance, you can see the shimmer of water breaking through the ice, a river being born. The sound it makes is faint but undeniable, a murmur of promise, of continuation. You realize then that nothing here truly ends. The snow melts, the rivers run, the water freezes again, and in that endless cycle, warmth never dies. It just changes shape. The dome behind you, the breath inside you, the memory of fire, all of it flows onward, quietly, eternally, carrying stories through time the way the rivers carry light. And as you walk, the world feels impossibly vast, yet somehow intimate, as if every echo of your heartbeat belongs to it. The elder's words linger in your mind. The house remembers everything. You think maybe he meant the world itself, that the earth, the snow, the very air are just pages in an endless diary of human warmth. You close your eyes for a moment and let the wind move across your face. It feels like a farewell and a greeting all at once. The snow beneath your feet sings faintly with each step, and you can't tell anymore whether it's melting or listening. The horizon shifts again, no longer a line of white against grey, but a faint blush of gold bleeding through the clouds. It feels foreign, that warmth of colour, like something you remember but can't quite name. The days are stretching now, each one slightly longer than the last, and with every sunrise comes the slow awakening of the world. But not everything wakes kindly. As the people pack their sleds and load their furs, you can feel a new presence on the wind, the eyes of strangers. The elder is quiet that morning, his gaze fixed on the far distance. "They're coming," he says simply. And though you can't see anything but the empty plain, you trust his words. His tone isn't fearful, just tired. You've heard the stories. The outsiders who arrived long ago, wrapped not in fur but in cloth, carrying iron instead of bone. They came with questions and notebooks, with rifles and rumors of God. To them, these snow shelters were curiosities. Primitive, they said. Ingenious, but primitive. When the first shapes appear on the horizon, they look almost spectral. Figures blurred by sunlight and snow glare. Their sleds are different, angular and rigid. Their dogs leaner, but restless. The men themselves move awkwardly, their postures stiff against the cold. They wave as they approach, though you can tell from their movement that it's less greeting and more claim. The elder steps forward, calm and deliberate. His breath forms small clouds between him and the strangers. "Welcome," he says in their tongue, though his accent softens the words into something gentler. One of the men, a tall figure with a pale beard, nods but doesn't smile. He looks past the elder, his eyes sweeping over the domes, the tools, the dogs, the people. You can see what he's thinking. To him, this isn't a home. It's a survival trick, a curiosity to be studied, not respected. The others dismount and begin taking notes, sketching, pointing. One lifts his camera, an enormous brass box on 3 legs, and begins to set it up. The elder watches silently. When the flash bursts, it startles the dogs, who bark wildly, straining at their harnesses. The strangers laugh, and the sound cuts through the air like a blade. Later they sit together by the fire, exchanging words through broken translation. The bearded man asks about the shelters, the tools, the hunts. He wants explanations for everything. Why the walls curve, why the smoke hole faces north, why the people still use bone when iron could be traded. The elder answers each question with patience, though you can see the strain in his eyes. To explain what is sacred to someone who only wants data is its own kind of exhaustion. One of the younger hunters leans close to you and whispers, "They call our homes snow huts like they are toys." His tone isn't angry, only puzzled. How can a house that saves your life be small? You look at the stranger's hands, gloved in wool, trembling with cold. They have better tools, better coats, yet they shiver while the villagers do not. You realize then that warmth isn't only a matter of shelter, but of understanding. These people have the science but not the wisdom. They build fires, but they don't know how to listen to their flame. The elder pours the visitors each a small cup of melted snow mixed with oil. It's hospitality in its purest form, but one man refuses to drink, grimacing. "Unclean," he mutters to his companion. The word lands heavy in the quiet. The elder's eyes flicker, then dim. He doesn't argue. He simply turns the cup and drinks it himself. When the strangers leave, they carry pieces of the place with them, measurements, sketches, a chunk of packed snow cut from the dome wall, sealed in a jar like an artifact. They'll take it to show others, the elder says softly after they vanish over the ridge. They'll think they have stolen our secret. But a secret made of snow cannot live in a warm hand. That night, as the dome fills again with quiet light, you think about what he said. The world of warmth and the world of cold are not enemies. They simply misunderstand each other. You picture the jar of snow melting on some distant table, turning back into water, carrying with it a trace of breath from this very air. Maybe that's enough. Maybe that's how stories travel when people fail to listen. Days pass, and more visitors come. Some arrive with trade, others with instruments, metal rods, glass vials, notebooks thick as bricks. They measure everything: air temperature, snow density, even the color of the smoke from the lamp. One man, wearing round spectacles, asks the elder to dismantle a section of his dome so he can study its load-bearing curvature. The elder obliges, though there's sadness in his movements. It will teach them, he says, but it will not warm them. You stand nearby as they argue among themselves. They call the design primitive architecture, admiring its efficiency while refusing to see its soul. One insists it must have come from accidental discovery. Another claims it's innate human geometry. You realize they're debating existence without once speaking to the people who live it. At night, they light their own fires outside, bright, crackling, wasteful. Their heat escapes into the open air, while inside the domes, the villagers sleep in steady calm, their snow walls glowing faintly from within. The strangers' tents flap and groan in the wind. You can hear them coughing through the night. The irony isn't lost on anyone. The next morning, one of them collapses from exhaustion. The elder helps him inside and tends to him without question, feeding him broth, wrapping him in fur. The man wakes hours later, eyes wide in disbelief. "It's warm," he whispers, astonished. "Snow can't be warm." The elder only smiles. "That's because you've never asked it kindly." For days afterward, the stranger stays close to the dome, watching how the people move, how they breathe in rhythm with their shelter. You see his notebook filling with sketches, not of measurements, but of faces. One evening, he asks the elder if he can learn to build a dome himself. "If you have patience," the elder says, handing him a snow knife. "And if you don't mind failing." They work side by side for hours, the elder correcting each misplaced block with quiet precision. The stranger's fingers turn red and raw, yet his eyes gleam with wonder. When they finally place the keystone, the final block at the dome's top, the man steps back, trembling. "It stands," he breathes. The elder nods. "Now breathe inside it," he says. "Otherwise, it's just a shell." That night, the stranger sleeps inside his own small dome. In the morning, he emerges smiling, steam rising from his hair. "It's true," he murmurs. "I dreamed, and I didn't freeze." Before he leaves, he gives the elder his notebook. "For your people," he says. The elder flips through it. Pages filled with sketches of hands, faces, laughter, smoke, light. "You listened," the elder says simply. The man bows, and his breath curls into the air like a final signature. After they're gone, the snow feels different again. Emptier, but also lighter, as if something unspoken has passed between worlds. You imagine that notebook finding its way to some faraway library, the ink fading, the paper yellowing, but the warmth remaining somehow, hidden between lines. Historians would later call those early encounters the moment the Arctic met the modern world. Some described it as progress, others as loss, yet both missed the truth. The meeting was never about conquest or discovery. It was about translation. One language spoke in numbers, the other in breath. Both tried to describe the same thing: how to live without freezing. That night, the elder gathers everyone near the fire. "They will come again," he says, "and they will forget what we told them. But someday, when the cold returns to them, they will remember." The snow teaches slowly. You sit there, listening to the crackle of the lamp, watching smoke rise through the vent and vanish into the night. You wonder how many stories have followed that same path. Words carried upward, scattered into clouds, falling back later as snow. Perhaps that's what memory truly is, the sky returning what it once borrowed. When you lie down, the dome hums softly around you. Outside, the snow glows under starlight, each flake a mirror reflecting countless human faces. Those who stayed, those who left, those who listened, and those who didn't. You realize then that history isn't written only in books or monuments. Sometimes it's written in breath, melting slowly, waiting to be remembered again by the next who stops long enough to feel the warmth inside the cold. You awaken to the sound of water. Not dripping, not melting, flowing. It takes a few seconds to understand what it means. The dome breathes differently now, heavier, almost humid. The air that once crackled dry against your skin has turned soft and damp. Outside, the great thaw has begun. You crawl toward the tunnel and lift the flap. The world beyond is unrecognizable. The snow still stretches for miles. But the surface gleams with streaks of liquid silver, where the sun has melted thin channels through the crust. It looks like the land itself is waking up, stretching after a long, frozen sleep. The light is sharp enough to make your eyes water. Everything glows. Ice, sky, breath, even shadow. The elder joins you, his expression unreadable. He squints toward the horizon where a thin shimmer of blue cuts across the white. The sea is returning, he says quietly. You realize he's right. The ice that covered the distant bay is breaking apart, slabs drifting like shattered mirrors. Somewhere beyond sight, the water beneath has begun to breathe again. Inside, everyone moves with a strange mix of excitement and melancholy. The thaw is celebration and farewell at once. The dogs bark, eager to run on firmer ground. The hunters check their gear, already planning routes to the southern coast. The women begin to repack hides, to seal food in skin pouches, to mend clothing for the journey ahead. It's an ancient rhythm, the migration that marks the turn of seasons. The elder sits by the lamp, watching it flicker one last time. The snow house did its work, he says. Now it can sleep. His hand rests on the curved wall, and you feel a lump rise in your throat. There's something heartbreakingly human about the way he touches it, like saying goodbye to an old friend. Outside, the first drops of meltwater slide down the dome's sides, catching sunlight until they sparkle like tears. You reach out to catch one on your finger. It's colder than you expect, but beneath that cold lies something familiar, an echo of warmth from within. This, you think, is what they meant when they said the snow remembers. Soon the work begins. The men dig small trenches around the dome to direct meltwater away from the entrance. The women lay furs across the ground to dry. Children chase each other, shrieking as they slip through shallow puddles, their laughter echoing across the valley. For months, the world has been silent, but now it fills with noise again. Liquid, wild, alive. You step outside and look toward the horizon. In the distance, the snow domes dotting the plain begin to glisten under the rising sun, their edges softening, their walls weeping light. It's like watching stars dissolve in slow motion. One by one, they blur into the land, their glow swallowed by the earth. The elder joins you, his steps slow but steady. It always looks like sadness to outsiders, he says, gesturing at the melting domes. But to us, it's just breathing. The world exhales, and we follow. You nod, trying to match his calm, though something inside you aches. Maybe it's because the dome felt alive to you, warm, safe, filled with stories. Watching it fade feels like losing a memory you haven't yet finished living. That night, they hold a small ceremony. No drums, no chanting, just silence and light. Everyone sits close together, each person holding a small bowl filled with snow. When the elder gives a nod, they lift their bowls toward the vent and wait for the warmth of the lamp to melt the snow into water. One by one they drink. It's not a ritual of mourning, but of gratitude. We drink the shelter, the elder says softly, so it can live inside us. You raise your bowl too, and the cold water stings your throat before settling warm in your chest. The idea that something so fragile, so temporary, can nourish both body and spirit feels like the truest lesson you've learned here. By the next morning, the dome has begun to sag. The roof bows inward under the soft weight of its own melting heart. You can hear faint cracks as the upper layers shift and settle. No one rushes to stop it. They simply watch. This is the natural end of every snow house, and everyone treats it with quiet reverence, as though attending the passing of an elder. The air outside smells different now, saltier, fuller, alive with the promise of distant water. The ice on the bay has fractured completely, revealing patches of dark blue that pulse under the sunlight. The hunters stand at the ridge, reading the signs. "It's time," one of them says. "The seals are returning." His voice carries both joy and gravity. The hunt will begin anew, but the journey will be long. You walk with the elder to the edge of camp where a stream has formed from the melting domes. It snakes through the snow, carving a narrow ribbon of water that gleams like liquid glass. "This is where warmth goes," he says. "Not lost, just changed." He kneels, dipping his fingers into the stream, then touches the water to his forehead. "Every drop that leaves here carries our breath." He tells you that in his youth, the elders believed the spring melt was the voice of the land thanking them. Each dome becomes a song, he explains, and the rivers are the verses. You try to imagine it, an entire landscape made of melting music, whispering gratitude as it moves toward the sea. It's such a beautiful thought that you almost believe you can hear it. A low hum, faint and endless, threading through the air. Later, you help dismantle what remains of the dome. The walls come apart easily, collapsing into heaps of soft snow. Beneath them, the floor of compacted ice glistens smooth and clean. The elder gestures for you to take a handful and toss it toward the wind. A gift to the next winter, he says. So it will remember us kindly. The flakes scatter, catching sunlight like shards of memory. The dogs are restless now, sensing the coming movement. Harnesses are checked, sleds loaded with care. Children carry small bundles of dry grass to use as bedding when they camp again. The air hums with anticipation. The elder moves among them, offering a touch on the shoulder here, a smile there. His presence steadies everyone. Before they depart, he stands one last time beside the ruins of the dome. The snow has melted enough that only a low ring remains, a ghostly outline of what was once a home. He closes his eyes and begins to speak, voice low but firm. This place kept us alive. It held our laughter, our fear, our breath. When the next winter comes, it will rise again in another shape, and it will remember. The others bow their heads. For a long moment, no one moves. The wind lifts snowflakes from the ground and swirls them gently around the circle, as if answering his words. Then slowly, they begin to walk south. The sound of the sleds fades, replaced by the murmur of meltwater and the occasional cry of returning birds. You linger a moment longer. The ring of snow glows faintly in the sunlight, already softening at the edges. You think about how every home, every shelter, every story must someday dissolve, but that doesn't mean it's gone. Its warmth continues, hidden in rivers, in air, in memory. You kneel, press your palm to the cold surface, and whisper a thank you you can barely hear yourself say. When you finally rise and follow the others, the horizon has turned to silver. Behind you, the snow house sighs and folds into itself, its final breath sending a shimmer of frost into the sky. It looks, for one fleeting second, like a spirit leaving the earth, light, free, eternal. As you walk, the land transforms around you. Streams multiply, singing their quiet songs of farewell. The dogs run faster, paws splashing through shallow water. The air smells of salt and promise. Ahead, the elder raises his staff and calls back without turning. Do you feel it? You do. You feel the world expanding again, the cold loosening its grip, the light stretching its fingers across the horizon. Every drop of melting snow seems to whisper the same truth. Nothing really disappears. It just changes form. You realize that warmth, like memory, is not a thing you keep, but a thing you give away, knowing it will find its way back someday. When night comes, you camp near the edge of the thawing sea. The ice groans softly, rocking like breath beneath the stars. You fall asleep to the sound of water moving beneath frozen skin, a heartbeat older than time itself. The world exhales, and you exhale with it, knowing that somewhere behind you, in a valley of melting light, the spirit of the snow house has finally gone home. The days lengthen until the sun barely dips beneath the horizon. It rolls there instead, low and golden, as though unwilling to leave. The light never truly fades, and the world becomes something in between. Neither night nor day, but a long, soft breath that stretches endlessly over the tundra. The snow that once glittered like glass now lies heavy and wet, veins of river cutting through it in every direction. You walk along one of those shining paths with the elder, your boots sinking into the slush, each step leaving dark prints that fill with water before vanishing again. The sea is close now. You can smell it before you see it. That wild, metallic tang rides the wind, rich and sharp, carrying echoes of gulls and the soft groan of breaking ice. The sound is strange after so many months of muffled silence. The air feels thicker, heavier, pulsing with life. The elder breathes deeply and smiles. We're back to the edge, he says. Everything begins here. You crest a rise and there it is. The vast ocean, half frozen, half awake. Sheets of ice drift across the surface like the pages of a torn book, sunlight scattering over them in bright shards. Between the cracks, the dark water gleams, restless and endless. You feel small in its presence, the way one does in cathedrals or deserts. The others begin unpacking. setting up temporary shelters of hide and driftwood along the ridge. The dogs bark with renewed vigor, their reflections trembling in puddles of meltwater. Everyone is smiling. Even the cold here feels different. Softer, as though the sea itself has tempered it. The elder kneels at the edge of the shore and touches the water. You do the same, following his motion. It's freezing, yet somehow alive. Tiny ripples push against your fingers, retreating and returning again, like breathing. "We were born from this," he says quietly. "Not just our people, but all warmth." You look at him, puzzled. He gestures toward the horizon. When you live in ice, warmth isn't found, it's remembered. The sea remembers everything. That evening, they light fires for the first time in open air. The smoke rises freely, twisting into the pale sky before disappearing into the never night. Around the flames, stories begin again, new ones, old ones, and those that belong to no time at all. Someone speaks of the whale mother who carries lost souls in her belly until they find their way home. Another recalls a winter so cold that the stars froze in place for 3 days, refusing to move. You listen, realizing these aren't just tales. They are maps of emotion, blueprints of endurance. The elder leans close and says, "The old stories always wake by the sea. The land keeps our bodies, but the water keeps our voices." He points to a spot far out on the bay, where the ice shifts and glints like glass. "Under there," he continues, "the world's oldest songs sleep." You stare at the horizon until your eyes blur. It's easy to believe him. The sea seems to hum faintly, a low vibration that you feel in your bones rather than hear. You imagine those ancient songs rising up through the dark water, blending with the rhythm of waves and wind. Later, when the fire burns low, the elder begins to hum a melody unlike any you've heard before. It's slow, circular, built of pauses rather than notes. One by one, others join in, their voices weaving together, low and steady, until the sound feels like the pulse of the ocean itself. The waves match the rhythm, or maybe the people match the waves. You can't tell which came first. It's not worship, it's remembrance. The sea has returned, and so have they. The sound continues long after the words have ended, echoing across the flat water, fading into the pale light of a sun that never quite sets. The next morning, fog rolls in from the ocean, thick, silver, and alive. It moves like a living thing, wrapping around the camp until the world shrinks to the span of a few heartbeats. The air tastes faintly of salt and something metallic like the edge of a blade. You can't see the sea anymore, but you can hear it breathing beneath the fog. That deep, patient sound of water shifting against ice. The elder walks ahead of you, his outline ghostly in the mist. "The sea hides when it listens," he says softly. "It's teaching you to trust what you can't see." The fog presses close, muffling every sound but your footsteps and the faint splash of water beneath the thawing crust. It's disorienting but strangely comforting. The elder stops suddenly and kneels. When you reach him, he's tracing something in the slush. A symbol, a spiral that loops inward and outward like a wave. "We draw this before every journey," he says. "It reminds us that every path that leaves must also return." You watch him finish the shape and feel something shift in your chest. A recognition that goes deeper than logic. As the day warms, the fog begins to lift, revealing a world transformed. The ice near the shore has broken completely, forming a maze of glittering pools. Sunlight scatters across the surface, making the whole bay sparkle as though 1,000 fires are burning beneath the water. The dogs bark joyfully, splashing through the shallows. Children chase them, their laughter echoing against the cliffs. Life has returned in full color. The hunters prepare their kayaks, sleek frames of driftwood and sealskin, oiled until they gleam. You watch them push the boats into the water, their paddles slicing through the still surface with perfect rhythm. The elder tells you that these boats are born from the same logic as the snow house. Curved, balanced, self-sustaining. One traps warmth, the other dances with water. But both are built from the same understanding, that survival is a conversation, not a conquest. You help carry supplies to the shore, feeling the cold spray kiss your skin. The elder ties a small charm of bone to one of the kayaks, whispering a blessing in a language you still don't fully know. "For balance," he explains, "so the sea remembers kindness." You realize that every act here, even the smallest, carries intention. Nothing is done by accident, nothing is wasted. As the kayaks disappear into the misty distance, the elder sits beside you on a rock. "You've seen how we build, how we eat, how we sleep," he says. "But this is how we listen." He closes his eyes, and for a long moment, neither of you speak. You hear it then, the faint rhythmic pulse of the ocean beneath the ice, the whisper of wind through melting snow, the creak of the earth shifting under spring's weight. It's music, though no instrument plays it. When the hunters return hours later, they bring with them seals, fish, and driftwood shaped by waves. The air fills again with laughter, the smell of cooking, the sound of stories. The people move like waves themselves, rising, falling, merging. It feels as though the entire camp breathes in unison. That night, under the golden half-light, the elder speaks once more. Now you understand, he says. The snow taught us how to stay still. The sea teaches us how to move. His words settle into you like heat after cold. You realize that their wisdom isn't divided between land and water, or winter and spring. It's a single truth told in two voices. Balance. Always balance. As the fog drifts away and the horizon opens wide, you look out at the ocean, its surface gleaming with fire and shadow. The elder's song from the night before echoes faintly in your mind, merging with the rhythm of the waves. You feel the strange, powerful certainty that this place will never truly leave you, that every breath of salt air, every shimmer of light on water, will return in dreams. You close your eyes and listen again, just as he taught you, and beneath the sound of the waves, you swear you can hear the faintest echo of snow melting far inland. A reminder that everything, even warmth, is always moving home. The wind has changed again, no longer the dry, knife-edged chill of deep winter, but a restless, breathing wind that smells faintly of moss and salt. You can hear it sliding over the thawed flats, whistling through patches of half-melted snow. The people walk slowly now, sleds half-lightened, dogs trotting instead of charging. You feel the shift not just in the air but in their posture. Shoulders uncurved, eyes lifted toward a sky that seems, for the first time in months, to hold more than survival. Ahead lies the mouth of a wide river, its banks still white with the ghost of snow. Here, the land begins to taste of green again. Small buds, shy and pale, have pushed through cracks in the ice, trembling in the breeze. One of the children laughs at the sight and runs forward to touch a leaf as if it were a miracle, which, in truth, it is. The elder smiles but doesn't hurry her. First color of the year, he murmurs. It means the world is remembering itself. You reach the river's edge, where the meltwater runs fast and dark, carrying fragments of winter in its current. Bits of ice, twigs, even the faint grey dust of old snow houses. The elder crouches beside it and scoops a handful to drink. This, he says, is everything we've ever built, coming back as water. The others follow his lead, kneeling to drink in silence. You copy them and the taste shocks you, cold, mineral, alive. It feels like the season itself entering your body. When they camp that night, it is not in snow but on damp earth. The smell rises rich and loamy, strange after so many sterile months. They spread hides on the ground and build fires ringed with stones. The flames crackle differently here, as if surprised to be burning in open air. Smoke curls upward in long grey ribbons, carrying the scent of spruce and salt into the sky. You can't stop watching it. After so many nights of fire trapped inside domes, this open blaze feels untamed, almost indecent. The elder senses your thought. Snowfire teaches patience, he says. Earthfire teaches courage. He sits beside you, staring into the flames. One teaches you to hold, the other teaches you to let go. His words drift between you, soft as embers. Later, as dusk bleeds into the horizon, they begin their work. Nets are untied, hooks sharpened, boats patched with new skin. The air hums with purpose again. A young man begins to whistle while mending a paddle, and the tune spreads, half song, half rhythm. Even the dogs seem to wag in time. You find yourself smiling, realizing that this sound, this easy music of labor, is the true sign of spring. When the nets are set to dry, the elder tells a story. It's about the first river, the one that carved its path through frozen land before humans had names. He says the river was lonely at first, and so it made the wind to speak to. But wind only talks in echoes, he adds with a grin. So the river learned to sing instead. He points to the dark water flowing nearby. That's what you're hearing now, the same song, just older. You listen carefully, and indeed the river seems to have a rhythm, low, constant, tender. The sound threads through the night like a heartbeat. For a long while no one speaks. The stars shimmer faintly overhead, blurred by thin clouds of sea mist. You realize that this stillness isn't emptiness. It's conversation, one older than any word. The elder eventually rises, brushing ash from his hands. Tomorrow, he says, we follow the river to the coast. There, the sea will ask what we've learned. He smiles, that small knowing smile you've come to trust. We must have an answer ready. You stay awake long after the camp quiets. The river whispers beside you, and the fire sinks into embers. You think of all the snow houses now melted, their warmth traveling through this same water toward the sea. Maybe, you think, the sea will taste faintly of smoke and breath when it arrives. You close your eyes and imagine that vast meeting, the melted past joining the moving present. And somewhere, beneath all that sound, the pulse of life continues, steady and forgiving. Morning rises slowly, a pale shimmer spreading across the valley like breath over glass. The river gleams silver in the light, restless and full of promise. You wake to the sound of paddles being loaded, the soft thump of hide stretched over wood, and the low murmur of voices speaking in rhythm with their work. The smell of the sea rides the wind now, sharp, alive, familiar. It feels as though every element of the earth is in motion, carrying the people forward towards something ancient and inevitable. The camp moves efficiently. Fires are stamped out, ashes scattered to the wind. Children roll up hides still warm from sleep, their laughter ringing through the mist. The elder stands near the water, staff in hand, watching the current with eyes that see far beyond it. The river remembers the sea, he says quietly, and the sea remembers the stars. That's how we find our way. You follow his gaze and see what he means. The way the light on the water mimics the glimmer above, a mirror of constellations drawn in motion. When the boats are ready, everyone moves to the shore. The kayaks slide into the current with the grace of creatures returning home. The paddles dip, lift and dip again, leaving behind ripples that catch the sun and scatter it like broken mirrors. You climb into one of the larger boats, feeling it rock beneath your knees. The elder takes the seat in front of you. Keep your balance, he says without turning. The river respects those who trust it. The current pulls you forward immediately. The world narrows to a tunnel of sound and light. The hiss of water against the hull, the rhythmic creak of paddles, the faint calls of others further downstream. The wind presses against your face, cold but clean. It feels like motion itself, pure and endless. You think of the elder's lesson. Snow teaches stillness. Sea teaches movement. Now you understand. Here everything flows. Memory, warmth, even fear. Hours pass like minutes. The river widens, its banks breaking apart into small islands of moss and stone. Birds wheel overhead, calling in sharp cries that echo between the cliffs. The air smells richer here, full of salt and life. The elder pauses his paddling and points ahead. Do you hear that? He asks. At first you only hear the rush of water. Then faintly, another sound. Low, rhythmic, deep. The heartbeat of the ocean. When you reach the mouth of the river, the world opens wide. The sea stretches before you, vast and glittering. Waves roll slowly toward the shore, collapsing into foam that shines gold in the slanting light. The elder lifts his paddle and holds it still. Everyone else follows suit. For a moment, there is no movement, only silence. The meeting of two infinities. The river that has carried you and the ocean waiting to receive you. He whispers something you almost can't hear. Every winter we hide from the sea. Every spring we return to forgive it. You watch as he lowers his paddle into the water again, letting it rest flat against the surface. The reflection of the sky wavers in the small ripples, fractured yet whole. This, he says, is the true fire, the one that never dies. Back on land, the people begin to build small summer shelters from driftwood and hide. Fires are lit, not for warmth this time, but for company. The air fills with the smell of smoke and cooking fish. The children run barefoot across the sand, their footprints dissolving in the foam. It feels impossible that these same hands once built snow domes under a frozen sky. Yet the rhythm is the same. The quiet cooperation, the laughter between tasks, the understanding that survival is not labor, but love. The elder sits apart for a while, staring at the horizon. When you join him, he nods toward the waves. The sea keeps all secrets, he says, even those we try to forget. You ask him what he means. He takes a small stone from the sand and tosses it gently into the surf. Everything we build, everything we lose, finds its way here eventually. Snow, bone, stories. It all returns. As the sun dips lower, he begins to hum again. that same song he sang when the sea first appeared. Others join in slowly, their voices blending with the sound of the tide. The melody carries across the water, dissolving into distance. It feels less like music and more like breathing, as if the entire coast has joined in one long exhale. Night never fully arrives. The sky turns violet, then silver, the horizon glowing faintly as if lit from beneath. You lie back on the sand, the chill sinking through your clothes, but not unpleasantly. Above you, stars flicker in and out of sight through a haze of mist. You realize how far you've come, from the silence of the snow house to this endless symphony of motion. The world, it seems, has two hearts, one that beats in stillness and one that beats in waves. Before sleep takes you, the elder's voice drifts across the camp. The snow has melted, but its warmth still lives in the water, he says. And when the sea freezes again, it will remember our fire. You close your eyes, listening to the steady rhythm of the surf. Each wave sounds like a breath drawn by the earth itself, one long eternal inhale and exhale. You fall asleep with the certainty that the world will keep breathing long after the last dome has melted, long after every story has been told and retold into silence. You wake before anyone else. The sea is quiet, its surface smooth as glass beneath a pale, endless dawn. Mist drifts low across the water, curling like breath, and the horizon glows faint gold. The camp still sleeps. Dogs curled nose to tail, fires reduced to faint threads of smoke. But something in the stillness calls you to rise. You walk toward the shore barefoot, the sand cold and damp beneath your feet, until the edge of the tide kisses your toes. The water is shockingly cold, but alive, vibrating with the pulse of the world. You stand there a moment, letting it move around you, feeling the tide's slow rhythm tug at your ankles like a heartbeat older than time. For months you've been learning to listen, to snow, to silence, to flame, and now, at last, to this, the voice of return. Behind you, the elder's footsteps approach. He doesn't speak at first. He simply stands beside you, staff planted in the sand. The light catches his face, drawing fine lines of silver along his skin. He looks at the horizon with the kind of calm that comes from knowing the world intimately. Every cycle, every return. You hear it now, he says softly. The sea's true song. You nod, though words feel too small. The sound isn't a sound exactly. It's a vibration through the air, the water, the bones. You understand now why these people survive where others fail. They don't fight the elements. They move in rhythm with them. The snow, the wind, the sea, all are teachers. The people simply learn. The elder turns to you and smiles faintly. This is the last lesson, he says. Every warmth must return to cold, and every cold must remember warmth. That is how the world stays alive. He gestures to the camp waking behind you. Fires are being rekindled, laughter rising softly. The smell of fish broth drifts on the wind. Everything feels cyclical, perfectly balanced. Life doesn't begin or end here. It circles, melting and freezing, burning and cooling, like the breath of the earth itself. Later that morning, the people gather by the shore. It's time for their final act before moving inland again. The elder kneels by the water with a small bowl carved from driftwood. Inside it, a single coal glows red, the last ember from the winter's final snow house fire. He places it gently on the water and it floats, tiny and defiant, drifting outward on the tide. The fire returns to the sea, he says. When winter comes again, the sea will give it back. You watch as the glowing coal drifts farther and farther, its reflection stretching like a line of memory across the surface. It wobbles, then steadies, carried by invisible currents until it disappears into mist. A strange ache stirs in your chest. Not sorrow exactly, but reverence. You realize that this small act, this single moment of release, holds everything you've learned. The people begin to sing, not loud, not mournful, but steady. Their voices move like waves, rising and falling, words merging with wind. The song tells of the great cycles, snow becoming river, river becoming sea, sea becoming ice again. It tells of warmth sleeping in cold, of breath trapped in frost, of love that survives through seasons. You find yourself joining, quietly at first, then with full voice. The melody doesn't need translation. It's older than language. When the song ends, the elder rests his hand on your shoulder. "Now you know what it means to be warm," he says. "It's not a feeling. It's a promise." You look around at the faces of those who've shared this journey with you, the children, the hunters, the quiet women who kept the lamps alive through endless nights, and you see it clearly. Warmth is not what they carry in their hands, but in each other. Every shared laugh, every story whispered in the dark, every touch of fur against skin, that is what kept them alive. The sea begins to rise again with the tide, washing over footprints, smoothing the sand until all trace of human presence fades. Yet, something remains. The scent of smoke, the echo of song, the faint shimmer of life still moving in the air. You understand now that survival isn't about leaving marks on the earth, but about leaving warmth in its memory. As the sun climbs higher, the elder turns inland. "Come," he says. "It's time to follow the Thor home." His voice carries no finality, only continuity. You take one last look at the sea before following. The water glitters where the ember disappeared, and for a moment, you could almost swear it glows from within. The return journey unfolds like a long exhale. The land that once tried to bury you in silence now opens itself in slow revelation. Soft ground, thawing moss, the faint scent of salt grass brushing against the wind. The path is no longer a line, carved through snow, but a living tapestry of puddles and mud, where every step leaves a mark that glistens and fades. The dogs move easily, tongues lolling, their coats shining in the strange new sunlight. The people hum while they walk, not the songs of winter, but the quiet, rhythmic tunes that accompany beginnings. As you move inland, the sky changes. The pale, winter blue deepens into a color you haven't seen for months, something almost green at the edges, alive with promise. Flocks of birds pass overhead in careful formation, their cries echoing down through the open valleys. The elder walks slightly ahead of the group, his staff tapping a steady beat on the soft ground. He glances back at you occasionally, smiling that half smile that always seems to say, "Watch closely, watch." At midday, the group stops near a rise where meltwater pools into a shallow lake. The surface mirrors the clouds so perfectly that the sky seems to exist twice. The people begin to unpack, and soon the smell of cooking fish fills the air again. The laughter comes easy now, softer, looser, as if the ice inside everyone's chest has finally melted for good. Even the elder's laughter joins in, dry and low, like wind sliding across wood. "The body always remembers how to rest," he says. After eating, you walk down to the lake's edge. The water is astonishingly clear. You can see pebbles shimmering beneath it like fragments of forgotten stars. The elder joins you, crouching low to scoop up a handful. "This," he says, "is the melted memory of every winter before us." He lets it run through his fingers, droplets catching the sunlight. "When we drink, we are drinking our ancestors' warmth. You don't know if it's science or poetry, but you believe him. It feels right. Every lesson here has blurred the line between faith and fact until they are one truth spoken in two languages. Maybe that's what the outside world will never understand. Survival isn't about control, but about conversation, with the snow, with the sea, with time itself." Later, as the group moves on, you fall into step beside him again. "Will you build the snow houses again when the cold returns?" you ask. The elder nods. "Of course," he says. "The snow always returns, and so do we. That's the promise we make when we melt it into water. We tell it we'll come back." He looks at you for a long moment, his eyes reflecting the same endless sky you've been walking under. "Everything we build," he says, "is temporary, but the act of building, that's eternal." The words stay with you through the long afternoon. The land grows greener with every mile. You spot the first flowers of the thaw, tiny, defiant bursts of yellow pushing through soil still cooled from frost. They tremble in the breeze but do not break. Somehow, that makes you think of the people you've walked with. their lives so delicate yet so enduring. That evening, you camp beside the river again. The water glows orange in the light of the setting. Sun and the wind carries a softness that feels almost like forgiveness. Someone begins to drum, slow, steady beats that pulse through the air like another kind of heartbeat. Children dance near the fire, their shadows flickering over the ground like the spirits of future generations already playing among them. The elder sits close to the flames, his face lit with that same calm radiance. "This is how warmth travels," he says, gesturing around. "From laughter, from stories, from shared food. Fire is only the reminder. As the night deepens, the conversation turns gentle, full of small reminiscences and jokes that circle back to the long, dark months of winter. The elder tells one last tale, his voice weaving through the crackle of the fire. It's about a spirit made of snow who wanted to understand what it meant to live. So it melted into a river, flowed across the land, and in time became the sea. But each winter, the spirit returns as snow again, not to stay, but to remember. When he finishes, the silence that follows feels like a blessing. One by one, the fires burn lower. The stars begin to bloom across the darkening sky, their reflections scattered across the river like floating embers. You lie back on your blanket and listen to the sounds around you, the water, the wind, the low hum of voices fading into dreams. Everything feels connected, every drop of water, every breath of air, every story told in the half-light. You realize you're no longer a visitor in this world. You've become part of its rhythm. When dawn comes again, the light spills gently over the horizon, brushing gold across faces still sleeping. The elder wakes last, as always. He stretches, looks around at his people, then at you. "It's time," he says simply. "We walk until the next silence finds us." You pack your things without question. There's no destination, only direction. The journey itself is the home. As the group moves out, you glance back once more at the fire's ashes, already cooling. The smoke has vanished, but the warmth lingers in the air, invisible yet certain. It strikes you then that nothing here ever truly ends. It only changes its way of giving. Fire becomes heat. Snow becomes river. Story becomes memory, and memory becomes the next breath you take. You look at the elder, walking steady ahead, his figure framed by morning light. For a fleeting moment, you see him not as a man, but as part of the landscape itself, one more element in the eternal balance of cold and warmth. And in that moment, you finally understand what he's been teaching you all along, that to live here in this world of ice and fire is not to fight the cold, but to love it deeply enough to survive inside it. The fire fades to a faint pulsing glow. The last curl of smoke drifts upward, drawn by a wind so gentle you barely feel it. Around you, the camp has fallen still, dogs sleeping, the river murmuring softly against the banks, and the sky wide and tender above it all. You sit for a long time just listening. The world breathes, slow and sure, the same way it has since the first snow fell and the first hands built shelter against it. The air carries warmth now, but you know it won't last. It isn't supposed to. Every breath you take feels like part of that great rhythm the elder spoke of. The inhale of winter, the exhale of spring. You close your eyes, and in that quiet darkness, you can still feel the dome around you, the soft pressure of curved walls, the scent of lamp smoke and fir. You can still hear laughter echoing inside it, still see the elder's eyes shining with patient light. The river beside you catches the reflection of the rising moon. It shimmers, rippling gold and silver together. And for a moment, you think you can see every season layered inside it. The snow, the thaw, the sea. Everything you've witnessed returns to that single current of water, endless and forgiving. You breathe it in, and it feels like peace. Tomorrow will come, and the wind will change again. The people will move, build, melt, and move once more. But tonight, everything rests. Every lesson, every story, every breath of warmth carried forward through time. The world is quiet, yet full, as though holding its own heartbeat beneath the silence. Sleep now. You've learned what the snow meant to teach. Sweet dreams.